It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here, Mary Jo Foley. Lots to talk about. What went wrong with Teams yesterday? Mary Jo has the story. We'll also talk about the roadmap for Edge going forward and whether Edge really is the least private browser on the market. And then we'll celebrate a watermark number for Windows installs. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly. Windows Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 664, recorded Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. 1 Milliard users. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple and smart. That place is ZipRecruiter, where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. Try it free at ziprecruiter.com/windows. And by LastPass. From access to authentication to passwords, LastPass manages every entry point to your business so you can mitigate risk while improving employee productivity. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. And by Melissa. Bad data happens to good companies. That's why 10,000 businesses count on Melissa for clean, reliable address data. Get started today with 25,000 records cleaned free. That's a $75 value at melissa.com/twit. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft. This is going to be a big news show because in about 40 minutes, we're going to hear from Microsoft a little more about the specs on the Xbox Series X. Paul Thurrott is here. He'll stay with us through the Microsoft announcement. Paul is, of course, at Thurrott.com, and his books are at leanpub.com. Mary Jo Foley also here from ZDNet. Her blog is all about Microsoft.com. She'll be drinking heavily during the Xbox presentation.
I might take that one on myself.
I might watch too, because they're going to talk about Project Xcloud. So.
Yeah, there'll be some Azure news. Sure. Paul, I take it you're not going to Paris.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
It was.
What's the point if the restaurants are closed, the museums are closed,
and you're facing a 2-week quarantine probably when you get home?
Yeah. Not probably worth it. Yeah. I'm sorry to.
No, it's okay. Look, the first half of this year at least is over. Travel wise. So
yeah.
I just hope that it's not much longer than that.
Lisa and I are looking at our. We have one of those Google photo frames, and every time I look over, there we are in Budapest. There we are in Egypt. And
I was just doing this.
Never again.
on this day, so 2 or 3 years ago, I was flying to Germany. Yeah, well, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
You know what? Honestly, what are we complaining about here? A trip to Paris? Seriously, there are bigger problems in the world than that. So
that's a first world problem. Are you in lockdown in Lower Lehigh Valley, or are you?
So technically, where I live, I'm always in lockdown because there's nothing going on here. So people who don't work from home or don't work from home that often have an adjustment to make. People like me,
well, this is easy.
Who do work from home have a different adjustment to make, because for us, my wife and I, we both work from home. It's kind of a big, Friday comes and we're done.
Let's get out of here.
We go to a restaurant, a bar, whatever.
No.
And that's not really available to us anymore. So everyone has to adjust, I think is the point.
And I know, Mary Jo, you cannot leave the building now, right? I mean, you're really locked in.
We can leave the building only to go to the grocery store or an essential appointment.
Yeah. I have my gear. I'm in studio, but what we've done is we've got a skeleton crew here. There's only one engineer. There's me, and there's an occasional other people like editors floating through, but we stay far away. And then I put on masks, and I have special hunting gear, and the goggles when I go out my door, but nobody comes in this office. So I'm still, in a way, even though I'm at work, I'm locked down here as well. And of course,
sheltering in place has been my lifestyle for about 20 years. So
I know, kind of, right?
Steve Gibson had a great photo yesterday as his picture of the week. I might still have it lying around. Yeah, I think I do. About how we're all reacting a little differently to this. Can you pick up my my Mac? I can't switch over to it, but here's his picture. Coronavirus lockdown rules: do not travel, do not socialize, remain inside. And John, if you can pull up camera 6, you'll see how people react to that. I guess John can.
I'm not sure about the remain inside thing. I depending on where you live.
Normal people bawling their eyes out. Gamers going. Yeah. We're also we're well equipped to do this, and that's the other thing. I think a lot of people. I feel bad for schools. They've announced in California that the schools are now closed for the year.
Yeah. So it depends. Well, that's we were joking with my daughter. Someone said she said something about graduation, and my wife and I at the same time said, "I'm pretty sure you just graduated."
Yeah. Congratulations. That's
depending
sad.
on
no prom, no walk. It's sad.
Well, that's the bigger concern, right?
Yeah.
That she is robbed of that. So we'll see how that works out. But
I feel bad.
I sort of personally support the notion of everyone gets a pass for this semester or whatever. We'll see what happens next. I mean,
life's on hold.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yep.
A lot of places wanted to do like a school from home kind of thing. In our school district, they announced they were doing that, and then they realized they didn't have the capacity, and they just said, "You know what? Forget it. You're done." Yeah. So education is alive and well in Pennsylvania. But you got to whatever. You got to do what you got to do.
So I think we knew this was going to happen, but it's official now. Build is canceled, or canceled or online because. For instance, we're in the middle of the Game Developer Conference. One of the reasons we have these PlayStation 5 stream we had earlier today and the Xbox Series X stream is they're streaming what would normally be the Game Developer stuff.
Well, build the in-person live event is canceled,
right?
But they're going to record sessions and things, and they'll make that available at some point.
I wonder how this is going to change after the world is going to be different when we come out of this. But one of the things I think people are going to look hard at is gee, that worked pretty well. Yep. We didn't really need to fly people to Florida.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's still we need live events, not just our industry, but every industry, and those things will still occur. But I think there'll be less of them. They'll be smaller.
People will be a little more skittish about them. I mean, now we're all PTSD about shaking hands.
That's right.
Do you really,
Mary Jo? I should have spoken to you ahead of the show, so I apologize for doing this kind of live. But I had heard over a year ago, and then I've heard about this repeatedly about certain executives inside Microsoft have been trying to kill Build for some time now.
Yeah,
and,
I've heard that.
I don't know. Okay, sorry to just drop that on you. I worry that this will be the final push for that to happen. Yeah. That these people want Ignite to be the one big show that Microsoft, public-facing show that Microsoft does for customers and not partners because I guess they still do a partner show, but for customers, let's say, and that they've already been kind of putting developer content back into Ignite, and maybe this is the final nail in that coffin.
I know. I've heard the same thing, and I think what Microsoft would love to do if they can pull this off is do something like Salesforce does with Dreamforce, or like Amazon does with reInvent, and just have one big event, have lots of tracks. And be able to claim some giant number of people is there instead of 5,000 at Build and however many thousand at Ignite.
Yeah, but would love it's also like it's a politics thing too, right? So
it is.
One of the things that people who have been around a while will remember that Microsoft's developer show used to be called PDC. PDC was put on by what I want to call the dev or whatever they were at the time. And when Sinofsky brought everything in-house under Windows, he took that over and he has his own. That show Build came out of that. That was like the Windows show. Like he took over core Windows development, he took over server, took over dev for Windows. Obviously, that all worked out great. But we still have Build, and Build as PDC. It's essentially the same show, right? Is I think it's a fantastic show, but whatever. But with the big push inside Microsoft with Azure and Microsoft 365 now, there are people who are like, look, this needs to be the focus, and they're in places of the parts of the company where it's like, guys, we're the image that we want to project of this company now. We should be in charge of this stuff. And I don't know. I'm just worried. I think it's going to happen. Like, I think this might do it.
And
Computex is up in the air too. Taiwan is now blocked all foreign visitors. Computex isn't until June. I think one of the questions everybody has is...
It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen.
I have a trip planned to Germany in June to see the Oberammergau Festival. 1,000 people in an auditorium. It's a good idea? I don't know. But Yale refuses to... They're the sponsors of it. They refuse to cancel it. It's like... But I guess we don't know, right? It could, couldn't this all blow over?
Could it?
Maybe. So the way Microsoft canceled Build is kind of instructive, right? So everybody thought there would be this big public announcement, and first that they would notify people who had paid their $2,000+, but that's not what happened, right? It happened very late on a Thursday night. Word started trickling out. Suddenly, Microsoft sends us a statement that says we canceled Build, and all these people who paid the money are tweeting to me and saying, you can't say that, you aren't in charge of Build. And I asked them, and they gave me a statement, and they said, well, we didn't hear anything from them. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is terrible.
Now they'll get their money back, right?
They had to have known this was coming.
Yeah.
There's refunds already happening.
But companies spend money on, flights that maybe not cancelable, or hotels that may not be cancelable. I mean, there are people until they are told it's canceled, maybe spending money. Like
we're at the point where basically everything should be cancelable.
Yeah.
Or, I canceled my trip obviously to Paris. They didn't cancel for me, by the way. It was interesting that this flight was still happening somehow. And so when I canceled it, what they did was they gave me a refund on the seat upgrades that we paid for, but they gave me a credit for the basic seat.
Yeah.
So that I'm behooved to fly United at some point. Again,
Johnny Jet's
no
advice,
fees, whatever.
Johnny Jet's advice is, if you can, wait up to the last minute to cancel. It's not going to cost any more, and you have a better shot at them canceling it and getting all your money back.
That's right. Yeah. And it's not going to get more restrictive, I can tell you that.
Right.
As far as, change fees or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So just, he says, wait till 15 minutes before the flight. The other thing, I didn't know this, if they change the flight time, if it's delayed even by an hour, you also have the right to cancel. You could say, hey, that ruins my plans, can't do it.
Well, look, most big airlines, if you go to their sites now, what you're going to find is it's a blanket. You can just, everyone is waking those fees. And
they should.
It's just...
I know it's hurt. It's putting a hurt on the airlines.
Of course. It's putting a hurt on
they're
not unique in that capacity.
Everybody.
I mean,
yeah.
Think about just local restaurants and the people who live on tips.
I know. It's terrible.
It's awful.
Retail stores. Apple shut down all retail stores worldwide, and what's weird is they announced new products today.
Yeah.
New products.
And said it would be available in stores.
The announcements actually said they'll be available in retail stores next week.
Right.
Well, one thing they did do, and I'm seeing this more initially when they announce these closures, they say until April, 28th or until March 15th or whatever. And now it says until further notice. And so I think that's probably a better thing to say because no one knows how long.
Right.
The Chinese stores are open again, but with great Apple stores with great restrictions.
Yeah.
I'm sure that no Microsoft store is still open, or are they?
No one noticed, Leo.
They just closed them a couple days ago.
Honestly, if you're looking for a safe space with 10 or fewer people in it, they should look
it's probably okay. Nice. Yeah.
No, but you know what? In New York, that flagship store they have, that was a big gathering spot for kids after school. So I was kind of glad to see them close it because they had all these Xbox set up so people could come and play. And I'm like, so all these kids are out of school and they got nothing to do. Hey, let's go to the Microsoft store and play Xbox, right?
We're all germaphobes now because now when you say that, I think, they're all going to touch that controller. It's like, I mean, I never used to think that at all. Now I'm hyper aware of all that stuff. And I imagine that will continue. We're now, we all casually said, you get sick when you go to CES.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we're thinking 180,000 people.
I basically get sick
every
winter, and of course, every time you sneeze, it's like,
Yeah, right.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Steve Gibson was terribly sick last week. He's feeling a little better now. He doesn't know. He can't get a test, so he doesn't know if it was a cold or COVID or what. But he was he does not get ill. He lives in Orange County, which apparently does have community spread in Irvine, his area.
I assume
so.
there's an undisclosed location, part of his address.
We call it the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah. Is it technically a compound? Do you have
from
gun
barbed
turrets on the
wire,
corners of the
razor
property?
wire? Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope everybody is taking measures to stay safe. We are,
Yeah.
and just to reassure we are too. We have one engineer in here at a time. There's some essential staff. We are included in the 8 Bay Area counties that are shelter in place. But among the exceptions for essential businesses are media and radio. So but we're not making people come in, obviously. So in fact, we're making people work at home. We have as many of our staff, including our editors.
Right.
Yeah. So there's 1 or 2 people in here right now, and besides me, and I've locked the door.
I've also locked the door, but it's to keep the cat out.
Something that apparently Mary Jo is not perfect at. Did the cat knock you off?
No, this new Focusrite, if I bump it in a certain way, suddenly it like just goes offline.
Sorry.
I'm like, okay,
sorry.
don't touch it.
Yeah, actually,
No, it's my fault.
Mine is jittery too. I can drop something heavily on the desk and it will disconnect.
Oh dear.
Me too. Yeah, same.
Oh, I'm so
Strange.
sorry. Well, I'll have the.
No, you know what? It's the little
have the crack Focusrite team come to my house.
it's that little connector on the back.
Yeah.
Whatever that.
USB
But it
connector.
knocked out your Skype too. It must be static or something because it.
No, I had to take down Skype because
you
once
did it.
goes off,
I got it. Okay.
then I can't get Skype to recognize it again unless I shut it off.
So
Even
there is a way
unplugging
to
or
do it, but-
replugging the USB.
Yeah, if you unplug the USB port and replug it, will do
Will it work?
Yeah.
It will?
Should.
Yeah.
You may not. Skype may not jump to it.
I speak
but
from
you'll have to set it.
extensive
Yeah.
experience on this one.
Extensive
Me too.
experience.
Yeah, it does
Okay.
work.
Yeah.
It happens to me a
Okay.
lot,
Good to
unfortunately.
know.
Teams,
Okay.
everybody, Microsoft, we talked about this last week, is offering I think 6 months of Teams free. But of course, that was a mixed success because its server was down considerable amount of time in the last couple of days.
Yeah. Yesterday was not a great day in Europe if you were on Teams.
Yeah. A big problem, misinformation. You're seeing it everywhere, even on news. My dad sent me that Facebook post, which says if you hold your breath for 10 seconds, you don't have it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. My dad's a smart guy. He was
that's
so
all we have to do.
embarrassed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't need a COVID test. Just hold your breath. That should work.
You just take a little hibiscus. Isn't that the thing from Contagion?
Oh, yeah.
Hibiscus.
Yeah. Contagion. Was it? No, Forsythia.
Contagion. Is that
Forsythia.
Yeah. Oh, Forsythia. Okay.
Forsythia. Jude
I'm
Law
so
was.
allergic to it. Oh, man.
Yeah. Don't get allergic reaction.
Yeah,
That'd be
don't get
bad.
COVID then because
But-
you can't cure it.
I know.
WhatsApp has been one of the sources of a lot of misinformation. They're doing what they can. Microsoft's working too with Teams to kind of prevent the spread of misinformation. What is Microsoft doing about that?
Well, I don't. I'm sorry. I laugh because Microsoft has a search engine. Okay, so I think what they're doing is making sure that
Bing results.
bogus sites don't,
that's smart.
float to the top. But of course, compared to social networks like Facebook or Twitter,
That's where it really, or
yeah,
message.
LinkedIn.
Microsoft has a very
And
limited
LinkedIn
role
too,
to
right?
play here.
Yeah, LinkedIn's not going to be a big. You're not. Are you?
No,
Is it going
but still.
The real problem is these messaging apps because WhatsApp is so widely used, and the junk that spreads so rapidly. It's terrible.
Sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
and then
laugh. Microsoft obviously is taking steps, but they have a limited capacity.
Yeah.
Scope. It's not
Although
even capacity. They have an infinite capacity. With the
Right,
scope.
I'm sorry. I mean,
No,
limited
but you
exposure
got-
to the outside world.
They did do the Bing.com/COVID tracking site. They announced that this week.
They're so pissed off that President Trump gave
Of Google.
Google that big plug. That they said, well, wait, we can do that. We can put 1,700 engineers on it.
Right.
We also
Watch
don't
us.
have a COVID site ready to go. How come you didn't mention us?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's a good
So
question.
actually, this is my favorite tracker. This has kind of replaced the tracker that the Johns Hopkins tracker because it's just, I don't know, it's cleaner. Does
it ask you for your location as soon as you sign into the site?
it doesn't do that, which is good.
Is that,
Yeah. Bing already knows it doesn't have to.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I think this is nicely done.
Yeah.
It's a little sparer, but it's there. I imagine if if I click over it, I can get deeper, and then there's stories on the side. So there's a lot of. This is good.
Yeah.
It's nice and simple, which is kind of there's a lot to be said for it. And there isn't a big how many people have died number as there is on the Johns Hopkins site.
It's there, but it's a little more hidden.
It's smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. This is actually pretty nicely done. The way you can hover over your state, click it, get more information. I think that's pretty good.
I like that we're ahead of Ohio.
You're beating Ohio.
Is this not the thing?
You're beating Ohio.
Did I misunderstand the point of this?
Yeah. We're number one. Right.
Yeah.
We're number one.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot in Pennsylvania.
No, we don't. No.
Nobody has
a lot of
died in
these people,
Pennsylvania.
They're not going to be going to doctors, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That's what God made moonshine for.
Exactly. I know people who make moonshine, and I'm not kidding. I'm good friends with people who make moonshine.
The real problem with moonshine is you can't mix it with aloe vera and make hand pure sanitizer because it's too strong.
Right.
There's too much. It evaporates too fast. There's too much. You have to dilute your moonshine before you. Let's see what else. I don't want to make this the COVID show for obvious reasons. Yeah, but you also can't ignore it. We're going to be doing in about 20 minutes Xbox. Do you want to defer the? Or prepare people.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we should blow through this.
Maybe talk about what you know already.
And get it.
That's a good idea. Because Microsoft, unlike Sony, Microsoft has been pretty forthright about the specs.
Yeah, actually, I was a little confused. I think it was, I don't know if it was 2 days ago or yesterday. 2 days ago when they announced, the full specs. I was thinking, did they not already do this? I kind of thought they already had, but I guess there were a lot more details.
Right.
The important thing, and it's just high level, is basically what I've been saying all along they needed to do for this generation, which is 4K at 60 frames a second all the time, which is they've confirmed that is the case. Up to 120 frames per second, and then up to 8K probably at 4 frames a second or something. But that's there. From a raw performance standpoint, they're talking 12 teraflops. The Sony PS5, I think they said 10 point something teraflops. Sony's now claiming teraflops is not the be all end all, but I guess that was different from last time around because it used to be really important. But I think the other really interesting bit is the way they're handling storage, and so it's going to come with finally an SSD, and a good one too, like an NVMe SSD. So it should be pretty fast, 1 terabyte. And they're going to have internal expansion via basically a smaller, that half-sized kind of SSD card inside of a cartridge, basically. And then, as always, you can connect a USB. In this case, I think 3.2 external HDD, like you can today. And so I think that kind of meets the needs. It's nice. And if you're familiar with Xbox, you know that you can pull the storage and all that. It's not like you have to micromanage that unless you want to. You can do that too. But that should be good. So I would say overall this thing is exactly what it needs to be, for a next-gen console.
One thing I thought was really interesting on the PS5 is they announced that they're going to, they made a big case about why they're not using an optical disc. It's too slow, why they're using SSD instead of a hard drive. And then they mentioned, it's going to be this weird size, the optimal size, an 885 gigabyte SSD, but there's a extra M.2 slot in there, and they're going to allow users to open up the case and put another drive in which is, that's going to be fast, a lot faster than a USB 3 or even a Thunderbolt.
So Microsoft, by the way, is doing basically the same thing, except it's not literally a M2 card. It's kind of a little cartridgey thing you use, but the internals are basically the same.
That's smart because then it's easier for the consumer.
I think what we're really seeing here is these things are PCs, right?
They really are. In fact, they're even doing the speed step thing that in the past they haven't done. They've just been a steady clock speed. They're going to have a changeable clock speed depending on the needs.
Right.
Yeah,
so 1 terabyte built in, like I said, NVMe SSD, and then 1 more terabyte via the expansion card,
that's cool.
Which matches the internal speed and performance.
That's a good way to do it, actually, yeah. It's much more consumer friendly. New controllers as well, I think.
Yeah, newish. I mean, there's an additional button and it's USB-C based, which is great. It's a little closer to that Elite controller, which is also great. Backward compatible, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all good. I mean, this is an Xbox One X variant, essentially, right? Like it's, is to the Xbox One X what the Xbox One X is to the original Xbox One. In my mind, it's kind of in that category.
It's more incremental.
Well, it's a big jump, but it's the how do I say it? It's like it's not a completely different platform, like going from the original Xbox to the 360, which was PowerPC based, like Intel to PowerPC to I guess AMD or whatever. It's still AMD. It's still it's the same. There's no effort on the part of developers to create a game that's going to work. I should say, no great effort that's going to run on this as well as the Xbox One series. It is essentially the same. I'm not saying this very well. It's not a completely different. It's not a complete platform shift, I guess.
Xcloud.
Yeah. So this is actually really. Yeah, this one's really interesting to me because, again, as someone who is 50 plus years old, I get on the Xcloud beta. I'm really excited, the preview or whatever. I'm really excited. I get one of those clamps for my phone. I connect it to an Xbox controller. I start playing Gears of War 5. I can't see anything. Like all the text is like.
I can't see it.
Yeah. So, obviously Microsoft got a bunch of feedback from developers and they want to enable this future of gaming anywhere, anytime, any place. And the three, they're not concessions, I shouldn't call them, but the three big takeaways they got were we need to support native touch interface. So you can play that thing with your fingers and they'll support the ability to detect you're on Xcloud, not a console, and do that. Different screen sizes. And when you're playing on a very small mobile device, the ability to then ramp up the text size especially, but also the size of in-game elements. I mean, if you think of a typical shooters in the dashboard there's all kinds of stuff going on, and maybe they can streamline that and make the things you can see bigger, et cetera. And then just the networking component of it, which is not just people are going to be basically playing Xbox games over a cellular network, probably for essentially the first time, but also that in multiplayer scenarios, there's going to be a far greater variance in network quality once you factor in cellular. So they already have APIs for handling the differences between slower and faster speeds of different players, although if you play Xbox today, that doesn't really work so well. But they're really looking at that because they want to manage that connection state and performance so that everyone has a good experience when you're in a game together. So I suspect at the event we're about to see, they will talk about those three things at some point. But they've already created what are now like virtual online sessions related to those things as well that you can view on the internet rather than, I don't know, it was going to be probably at the GDC or something previously. So good. It's all good.
It's all good, man. Mixer, any Mixer news you want to share?
Yeah, let's just skip right by that.
Okay,
Mixer is a game streaming service that no one has heard of and even fewer people probably use.
This show is on Mixer. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
And so is GDC.
I will say,
if you're in the
Xbox ecosystem, Mixer integrates directly into the gaming experience on Windows PCs and on the console, and the integration is excellent. So if you are a game streamer and you're doing Xbox especially, and you want to reach that audience, I mean that's the way to do it. But it just doesn't have a lot of traction, I'd say, versus the big players in that market. So.
I just, because we were sheltering in place, downloaded Orly and the Wind of Time.
It's beautiful, right?
Called. Yeah, it's really pretty. And I what else did I download? Because I thought, well, I downloaded a couple
the first
of games.
Halo.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's classic.
Yeah, actually, I got
the
Half-Life respin.
Yes. Oh, did you get Black Mesa?
Yeah, Black Mesa. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
That's on Steam. What else?
Yep.
I thought, I just want to make sure I have some entertainment, something to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You mean you're not watching opera live streamed like many people are?
Andy Anako is doing that for me. I'll have him report back. Yeah, a lot of people are doing that in the Berlin Philharmonic, and
Sure.
John Legend was taking requests on Instagram yesterday. That's kind of cool.
I like the ability to turn people off. I don't like, it's like, you're at a live concert. You're like, I don't want to hear this song.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Honestly, I keep getting struck by this. First of all, it's a very different experience doing this in the internet era.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
Right.
we're kind of wired all the time, no matter what. And then, secondly, I do think there will be a very different world we'll come back into. We'll emerge from our cocoons into a new world.
Okay, so I mean, this is I'm going to speak to this a little bit, at the end of the show, but I do hope there are positive outcomes. Not that any of that justifies what's happening or whatever, or makes it
we don't
okay.
have a choice. This is what's happening. It's not.
Yeah, I hope that we, like we're for example, we're in the technology industry, right? So there's a constant cavalcade of releases of iterative hardware and software and services that we're supposed to get all excited about. People do get excited about, and a lot of the stuff in the scope of things is like, maybe this isn't the most important stuff in the world, like maybe. I find it weird, for example, that there's a business as usual thing that's occurring in my email between the emails I'm getting from every airline and credit card company for some reason about COVID, and every technology company, and about how they hope we're okay and you can pay online and everything's fine. And by the way, here's this new product release. And it's like, what is going on here?
Right.
Like,
they're trying. You know what, Paul? They're trying to survive like everybody else.
Yeah.
Please buy our stuff.
Actually, I went for a walk today because I can't go to the gym. And as I was walking around, it occurred to me that, as people, we tend to react to these things like you could almost picture someone saying, okay, so everything's normal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And by trying to make it normal, you're almost like hyper. And companies run by people are kind of doing the same thing. Like, it's a little strange, like how many product announcements there have been in the past 2 weeks, This show should be devoid of content, but we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And
I was worried actually that we wouldn't have any news. Yeah.
Me too.
But there's plenty of news.
There's plenty, including Goat of Duty is free on Steam until April 1st.
How dare you? How dare you?
You wanted a dog, you got a goat. Microsoft has announced Xbox Game Pass Ultimate perks.
Yeah, this isn't a big deal. So if
It's
you are
Ultimate.
in Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is expensive, right? So this is the version. This is the best version of Game Pass. So you get both the console and the PC stuff. I think it's $15 a month, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the games that you get on both consoles, they're making in-game, what used to be in-game purchases, certain of them, free each month, or probably twice a month as well. And so they've released the first list of perks that are available now. They're basically what we call DLC for various games. And then alongside that, they also made the announcement about the games that are coming to both Xbox Game Pass for PC and console, available over the remainder of the month, like they do, normally. So we have new games. Now we have new game perks, they're calling them. It's just another. They're just trying to add value to the subscription, I think. Yeah, basically.
Let's talk about developers. We got about 10 minutes, maybe 9, before we have to break into the Xbox event. .NET is now, the .NET Conf is now virtual, I see.
Yep. I just added that. Yep.
They're going to stream it, so it makes it free.
Yep.
That's good.
And the heavy focus on Xamarin for anybody who cares about Xamarin.
Why? Okay, so as someone who has just started looking into Xamarin again, and I find it to be terrible. What's the thought there? Do you know anything about this?
No, I don't know anything about why the focus is Xamarin, but I'll tell you, I've been watching tweets from the MVP Summit this week, which is also online. And when they had the Xamarin sessions, people were just flipping out completely. So there must be some big...
So something good is happening.
Yeah, something under NDA happened at this thing this week that nobody leaked, unfortunately, but it's going to be about Xamarin.
Well,
we count on you, Mary Jo. Get to work.
I know.
So
Xamarin,
which was originally the open source .NET variant, is now really mostly used for, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, cross cross-mobile platform.
That's right. Cross-platform
development.
mobile development.
So you can do Android and iOS.
Yeah, and Windows UWP if you want, but obviously the original goal there was Windows Phone or Windows Mobile, and if you use the Xamarin UWP, it's kind of a it's a reduced feature set kind of a deal. So it's really, but I just don't understand that anyone can use this. Like testing like Android and UWP, which you have to switch back and forth, which is the primary platform, and and run the emulator, and it is just a top heavy, slow moving, buggy thing to me. I mean, I'm not an expert at it, obviously, but I hope they are improving it dramatically. It needs it. It's a good idea.
There was a big story this week in the open source world, which was that GitHub, aka Microsoft, bought NPM. Yeah. NPM is a package manager for Node packages, and it's very widely used. I didn't even know you could buy it.
Right.
I know. A lot of people said that. They're like, wait, this is a company?
What did they buy exactly?
Yeah, so they bought.
We bought
so
the
they
idea.
do. No, they actually bought NPM Inc., which does Node Package Manager, the NPM registry, and CLI, right? And so I was like, I don't know, is that a big deal? And all of a sudden I looked at Twitter, and people either were, oh man, this is the best thing that ever could have happened, or people were like, okay, I'm out of here. Microsoft owns JavaScript.
Well, yeah, it depends what Microsoft does. They promised to keep it independent, I'm sure.
They did.
Look, I hope to God that what Microsoft did and is doing with GitHub will finally get this company over the hump with that element of the open source community that will never trust them. I feel like they are and will be great stewards of this technology. And I would assume that would be the case with NPM.
I think that's why the mixed reaction, because I think there are some people who say, well, this means NPM will be forever well-funded.
Right.
We use it. I mean, everybody uses it. It's how you install Node apps, which is a ton of apps. It's kind of unusual to think of a package manager as being a company, being owned by somebody.
I know.
But if Microsoft treats it instead as an open source project that they're funding and keeping alive, that would be a good thing. And that's the concern, I'm sure, from some people is, well, what are they going to do with it?
Right. Yep. So what they did say they are going to do is they're going to keep it free and open source. That'll continue, but also take the paid part of NPM and integrate it with GitHub packages. Right. So they're going to do both. They're going to keep having the free open source arm, and then for people who wanted the private package registry stuff, that's going to be integrated more tightly with GitHub.
Next thing you know, they'll buy pip. It's just weird. I don't get it.
I know. People are like, why? Why are they doing this? Do they want to own the JavaScript ecosystem?
Yeah, it's weird.
I guess.
And then the other thing I thought was weird was why mobile GitHub? I know. I use Git to commit during a development session on a computer. I don't develop on a phone.
I have nothing to add to this conversation. I have no idea what the point of this is.
No, you can use it to do simple things, kind of like using your email on your phone.
Yeah, you could check and see what's going on.
Yeah. Look in, check on things. React to pull requests, do that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah. There is GitHub is actually such a rich ecosystem now. There's so many. I mean, you can have a wiki. A lot of people have blogs on GitHub, so having the access to it on mobile, I guess, makes sense. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Actually, Twit is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. We've, of late, most of our best team has been hired by ZipRecruiter. Laura, Robin, Miles. I can go on and on. Why do we use ZipRecruiter? Well, hiring's hard in the best of times. With a small company like ours, when we're hiring, it's usually because we need somebody now. And we need the right person. You don't want to fill a position with not the right person, because it's just going to end in failure. But the right person can turn your company around. ZipRecruiter is where growing businesses like ours connect to the best candidates. Nobody wants to have to post on 100 different job sites, go through thousands of resumes, listen to a ton of voicemails. But today, it's so much easier with ZipRecruiter. You go to one place. ZipRecruiter immediately posts your job to 100 of the web's leading job sites, which means you're casting the widest possible net. But they don't stop there. Their powerful matching technology goes through the millions of resumes they already have on file to find people with the right experience and then invites them to apply to your job. You can even screen people out with screening questions, true, false, multiple choice, essay questions. So you could say, make sure you're only looking at candidates that meet your minimum requirements. They all go into the ZipRecruiter interface. They pre-format all the resumes. They're easy to scan. They'll even pick the best performers, the ones you really want to look at, star them, put them at the top. No emails, no voicemails. It's all in the ZipRecruiter interface where you can quickly filter through candidates and focus on the best ones fast. And I have to say, the inviting people to apply really works. I've told this story many times. I think this is how this is where we hired, I think, our bookkeeper. I can't remember. I remember Lisa saying, I won't say her name. Just quit. We got 2 weeks notice. We got to fill this position or I'm going to be doing all the work. And I said, well, ZipRecruiter, fast. This was at breakfast. By lunch, it actually happened almost instantly. Lisa's going, oh, this is a great candidate. Oh, here's another great candidate. Oh, this is great. It makes you feel so much better to know I'm going to have a good choice. And to have that in one day is amazing. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's how effective this ZipRecruiter technology is. It really works. We love it. I recommend you use it. In fact, we've even arranged for you to be able to try it free right now when you go to ZipRecruiter.com/Windows. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter.com/WINDOWS. You know how to spell Windows. ZipRecruiter. You know what's hard is recruit. ZipRecruiter or ZipRecruiter.com/Windows. I am a fan. You will be too. Do yourself a favor. Next time you got an opening, if you need somebody, do it right. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Thank you, ZipRecruiter, for supporting the show.
Yeah.
This saddened me, Paul, when I read.
Here's the problem. The Visual Basic. You're talking about Visual Basic.
VB,
right?
yeah.
Here's what I don't like about this. This has been happening for a long time. Like the Visual Basic has been so sidelined by Microsoft. I mean, it's just an afterthought, and has been for many years. But the blog post that they wrote about it makes it seem like a positive.
Yeah.
Visual Basic support plan for .NET 5.0. That's the convergence of .NET Core and the original .NET into a new, this cohesive single platform that's happening later this year. It sounds like it's great. And they even, this, I'm just going to pick out one sentence because this speaks to the problem with Visual Basic right here. One of the major benefits of using Visual Basic is that the language has been stable for a very long time. It's right, because you never change it. You haven't I guess that's a benefit, So I just having stepped firmly into the developer world again over the past 6 or 8 months or whatever it's been, I wrote that application, the .NET Pad, originally in Visual Basic and Windows Forms and the .NET Framework. And one of the things that any Visual Basic developer will be able to tell you is that when you go online to look at the documentation, it's all in C#. So if you're a Visual Basic developer, you literally have to learn C# in order to use Visual Basic, which kind of begs the question, why bother? And so primarily, and this is what the blog post is about, primarily what this support is for people who want to bring their existing Visual Basic apps or whatever forward to the latest versions of .NET. And it's going to be a subset of those things. It will include Windows Forms and WPF, and also, this is new, but ASP.NET Core Web, and a few other things. But there's a ton of things it's not going to support, like web forms, which is now legacy technology, or workflow, or Windows Communication Foundation, et cetera, of course, because those things are all legacy technologies. But, this is Microsoft informing the world that, it's over, right? And so they're not updating the language. They're not working on it. C# is going to move forward as it has been for many, many years. So yeah, it's tough. This Visual Basic is the beginning of my career. The first book I ever wrote was about Visual Basic.
It was awesome. I mean, that's the thing.
They're not killing it though, right? It's not dying.
Well, they're not killing it, but they're letting it sit. They're just leaving it alone. Yeah.
Well, that's not so
killing
bad.
it. I mean, they're giving up on it.
I use and favor a programming language that is as old as me,
Oh, jeez.
Lisp. And one of there's still lots of people use Lisp, but it is fixed in time. It's fixed in Amber. You don't mess with it. And so as long as it's supported, kept up to date, people continue to write libraries or tools for it. The fact that a language is done isn't such a bad thing. The problem is the technologies that VB is aimed at are moving, and VB's not.
You know what, though? Visual Basic is particularly interesting because when they moved to .NET, the language matured very greatly, became object-oriented. It was essentially identical to C#, which at that time was a new language. And they were co-developed side by side so that as language improvements occurred, they happened on both sides. That sounds like a great idea, but in retrospect, you look back at that, and of course the answer there is, well, why do we have two things that do exactly the same thing? And eventually they did split them, and now C# has, extended beyond what's possible with Visual Basic, and will again in the future. But I think the idea made sense at the time, but it's one of the, you look back at it and it's like, we shouldn't have done that. They should have kept VB what it was, VB6 and older, the classic VB, and made it it could have been the learning language that people use in schools today. It should be what people who use even Raspberry Pis or whatever in school could, they should have VB. Like VB should be the way that people learn programming, and it's not. And I think when they lost that kind of non-professional enthusiast educational market, I think that's what killed it, really. I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad.
Where do we stand right now on the, I think we're ready to go to
maybe sort of like
the
Xbox
event.
Years, and this is one of those. This is something that maybe, over 10 years ago.
So for those of you just tuning in, Paul Thurrott, Windows Weekly, Mary Jo Foley, Windows Weekly, and I are going to watch the Xbox Series X stream from the Game Developer Conference. See if they announce anything new or exciting. If you feel like at any point this is not informative, let me know.
Okay.
So
honestly, I feel like, from my perspective, I'm not going to ever write games for Xbox. I'm most interested in the price, and I don't think we're going to hear that today.
Yeah, we didn't hear that from Sony either earlier today with their PS5.
Yeah. Not to mention, by the way, whether these things will even ship this year, given what's going on in the world.
That's right. I mean, Sony and Microsoft both are aiming for Christmas 2020, but
will there even be a Christmas, Leo?
Will there be a Christmas? That's actually not a weird question.
I know.
Actually, they're interviewing, it looks like a game developer at this point. I don't think this is worth taking a break for at this point.
Right.
We're out.
He's using Teams, though. That's noteworthy.
So we're going to talk about the Teams outage more, but Teams has been used all week by the MVP Summit, thousands of them, and everybody's been saying how great it's been,
Nice.
So
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
It actually looks pretty good. And what I've seen of the Microsoft stream, they've been streaming all day. Everybody's on Teams. It's darn nice. The video.
I feel like Teams is about to explode, and it's already exploded. But what I mean by that is,
careful when you say Teams is about to explode. People
no, in a good way. I mean, Teams usage. I think part of it will be consumers. Part of it will be as it takes on all the Skype features. It connects with Skype. I feel like it's poised for even greater success.
Yeah. Unlike Visual Basic.
Visual, they could have had it all. I don't know why they did what they did. There's nothing wrong with Visual Basic. That's what kills me. It's still pretty fantastic.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like Lisp. It'll just continue on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, like Microsoft stock price in the 2000s. Just kind of flat lines across the board there.
Yeah. Microsoft is bringing accessibility-friendly Edge dev tools to all Chromium browsers. That's nice. So they're giving back.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and Microsoft has at different times provided updates to all of the what do they call them? Commits or whatever that they're making to Chromium.
Yeah.
And they've made 150 that have actually gone back into Chromium on DevTools accessibility features alone, right? So several hundred overall, thousands maybe at this point, but 150 that are just related to accessibility features in the dev tools, right? Not accessibility features overall, but in the dev tools. So I find that kind of interesting. This is not a world I understand very well, but obviously there are devices that people use to interact with computers, and they can use them with these dev tools, not just a general usage with the screen readers and so forth. Right. And so, and they're not just doing it for Edge, and so they're committing this stuff back to Chromium. Google's accepting those. Am I using the right term? Is it commits? I think it's called
commits. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and Google's so they for all the nonsense between Google and Microsoft, and there's still some of it, unfortunately. It seems like Microsoft's decision to go with Chromium has worked out, and I mean that in a very broad sense because it's benefiting people who choose not to use Edge but are using other Chromium browsers as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw there was a browser privacy study that came out today.
No, so by the way, that's not new. This was done. Yeah, I saw this. So I'm trying not to put too much into this because this was an academic paper,
right?
And I don't know what to say to this. What they're basically saying is that Microsoft is sending data back to Microsoft from Edge that could be used to individually identify a person who is using it.
A unique hardware ID that survives even the uninstall and reinstall of Edge, because it's much like the hardware ID that Microsoft uses for authorization. It's based on a hash of your hardware.
Yeah, it's probably something very similar to what they're doing in Windows, and is part of that telemetry stream that we don't really understand completely, despite the fact that I believe it's all available in some weird XML format. But I don't know why that just got more attention today.
So it's not a new study.
No, it's not super old. I mean, but let me look back because
they kind of put Edge at the bottom, along with the Russian Yandex browser.
Like Edge is a bigger privacy risk than Chrome. Like, are you kidding me? Chrome exists to invade your privacy. Like, that's literally the point of the browser.
Safari and Firefox are kind of in the middle, and they said Brave was the best at not sending any traffic information.
By the way, that's not a surprise at all. That's
what exactly Brave is built to do. So
I got
I was a little surprised that Firefox did not score well or as perfectly anyway.
But here's the thing. I think what this study can't show you is intent and what they are doing with it, right? Do you literally believe that someone's at Microsoft or sitting in a lab somewhere tying individuals to browser usage for some reason, like that Microsoft has a business case where that makes any sense at all? I'm sure they think there's a reason, or there is a reason for doing what they're doing, but this doesn't make sense to me. Like, this doesn't square with what I know about these companies and these browsers. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, finding out that Google was doing this, I would say, and they're using it.
And why? Because that's their business.
Right.
I guess Bing ads. I mean, Microsoft does have an ads.
There is an ads business for Bing, right?
Yeah, there is.
But I agree with Paul. It's small. It's relatively small. And I think with Microsoft trying to establish itself as taking the high ground on privacy, the worst thing they could do is this.
Well, that's what surprised me, because they seem to understand that Apple is scoring big points by saying privacy is job one. Right. And it's a real opportunity for Microsoft to do the same thing against Google, Facebook, Amazon. Yeah. And they seem to still kind of, it's as if they're not all unified behind it. There is a certain tone deafness at Microsoft about privacy in Windows. And I think it might have been last week or maybe the week before, there was some news tied to one of the insider builds where they were renaming the telemetry types, because there's opt-in, there's the part you can't do anything about. Basic telemetry is always going to happen unless you're in the enterprise. And then there's this kind of opt-in part where you can choose to send more data so Microsoft has better information and can improve the product and so forth. Privacy advocates will tell you that what they should offer is a third option, which is send nothing. And
I actually agree with that. Not because I'm worried about what Microsoft does with the data, but because I think that's the right thing to do, and that Microsoft can answer all of the complaints by simply offering that. And that if it was an option, the vast majority of people who use Windows would never even know about it or care. They wouldn't even touch it. And it's the right thing to do. And that they don't kind of sense this or act on it is the strangest thing in the world. And I've complained about Microsoft, what I call the privacy theater that they engage in, where they kind of wave their hands and they're like, oh, we care about your privacy. And they don't really ever change the fact that they're taking this telemetry. Like this Edge thing, I think, falls into this. Edge, I know, is not just on Windows, but essentially is a feature of Windows 10. Let's say, I feel like it falls under this same category. And it just doesn't square with the rest of the company. That doesn't even make any sense. Like, I don't get it. I don't know why they do it.
It's really foolish. Yeah.
Yep. I'd love for someone to explain it, from Microsoft. Say, look, this is why we do it. It's important. Here's why. I don't know that they can make a case for it.
They're still interviewing the creator of Bartlow's Dread Machine on the Microsoft stream. Are we on the right stream?
Right.
It doesn't. I don't.
Also, he appears to be in his home.
Well, yeah, everybody is. Who's out of their home, right?
I know.
Is this kid going to run into the back door and jump on his lap?
Daddy. So we'll go. So those of you who are tuning in to see Microsoft's Xbox Series X, or as I call it, Xbox Sex review.
Yeah.
Hang in there. It's not happening as far as I can tell yet.
Well, so this event is kind of curious because they just dumped the specifications 2 days ago. It seems like this could have been part of the event. Like maybe that should have been the event.
Are you looking at Mixer, right?
Yeah, we're watching the GameStack
Live.
Yeah. Is that what we should watch?
Yeah.
This is GameStack
It's also being
Live.
streamed on YouTube as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you could watch these middle-aged white guys. You could watch these other middle-aged white guys.
And gals. At least we have some gals, Oh, there's a black guy. He's in the studio at Microsoft. That's probably the Channel 9 studios.
And this guy is approxixly 5 miles away in Woodinville.
I'm not moving. I'm sheltering in place. Well, let's continue on. We'll go on with Windows Weekly, and we'll break in as soon as anything interesting happens. This is not uninteresting. Yes, it is. Microsoft 365er. What's the news?
Yeah. So March 30th, speaking of companies continuing to make news, Microsoft's going to have a virtual event. And I believe what they're going to announce at this virtual event is the long-awaited Microsoft 365 consumer subscriptions. They're going to replace Office 365 Home and Personal. So this is a thing I've been reporting on called Microsoft 365 Life, L-I-F-E, which is rebranded Office 365 subscriptions plus some additional features, possibly things added to Windows like additional rights or services on top of Windows, but not a requirement to subscribe to Windows itself. Let's be very clear about that because people have freaked out about that in the past. So we think it'll be priced the same as the current Office 365 subscriptions. So Home goes for $100 a year, Personal goes for $70 a year. Probably the same kind of rights where you can have multiple users tied to your account, and they also can use Office alongside you. So yeah, we don't. Microsoft hasn't acknowledged any of this. They sent us invitations, and it was very cryptic, right? It said. Yeah. We invite you to a digital briefing to unveil the latest from Microsoft. Learn about how to be more productive across work, life, and family. And the life and family part is what kind of gives us away.
Yeah. Because you've talked about the for life branding, right? Like that's something that has come up.
Yep. Yeah, because the team that Yusuf Mehdi leads at Microsoft it's called Microsoft Life. It's got life in the name of the products, and his title has the name Life. So it's meant to be the bridge to, we already give you the stuff to make you productive at work. Here's how we would suggest you be productive at home. This is for like prosumers, right? That infamous category they keep trying to get to with their various productivity products. So I don't think, to be clear, I don't think this is any of the Surface announcements that we're expecting. I don't think it's Surface Go 2 or Surface Book 3. I've had people say that's got to be what it is. But I don't think that is. I think those are later.
No. Although, by the way, I do wonder if they will not tack those things on, right?
I don't think so.
Because you don't think so. Okay. It is early. But
you know why? They want to they want to build more thunder for their announcements throughout the year, right? So if they did all of these things together, they're missing an opportunity to make a big deal out of Go 2 and a big deal out of Surface Book 3. Right. So
yeah, I mean, I
think they're going to do it separately. I do.
I feel like it's also maybe 2 months earlier than they planned on Surface. So.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see Microsoft, instead of having one big hardware announcement like they typically do in New York in the spring, to kind of trickle out their hardware announcements as separate virtual events over the summer months.
I agree. That makes sense.
All right. I think they're wrapping up GameStack Live now.
Gotta hope that's going to be available on demand.
But, well, you can continue the conversation.
Did he give us a tour of his home office?
I like the Victorian oval photo frame.
It's always you can tell you're in Washington State by the carpet on the floor.
The other big story, of course, Bill Gates stepping down from the Microsoft board. But he's my age, a little older. He's retiring, basically, right? He's going to work on his putting ships in a bottle and charity.
Putting ships in a bottle. Actually, give him a little credit. I mean, the guy's post-Microsoft career has been a giant mulligan, and I really appreciate the philanthropy and the trying to save the world's problem stuff. My whole issue with this is like, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, what made everybody kind of suspicious about this is, when did they announce this? Friday at 5 p.m. Okay.
Wait a minute.
So
Master Chief has just appeared on the stream.
Oh,
okay. I think we're getting ready to see. We'll talk about Bill Gates.
AR Master Chief.
We're going to take you now to an undisclosed location in the Pacific Northwest as we get ready to learn more about Xbox Sexy.
That thing is the size of a refrigerator.
Well, Master Chief makes it look smaller.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Ricari. I have the pleasure of helping moderate this incredible panel today.
Is that the guy from
So
Succession?
let's introduce our players to you. First up, we have Catherine Gluckstein, who is the GM of Project Xcloud, responsible for product and strategy.
Oh, there you go.
Then we're going to have Jason Ronald, the Director of Program Management for the Xbox platform. We've got Rachel Card, Senior Director of Program Management for Microsoft Gaming. And rounding things out is going to be Chris Novak, partner and head of Xbox Design Studio. Everyone, welcome. Cool. Can we hear everybody? You guys on the phone? Can we hear us a little say hello?
The transition to non-live events is going to be a little difficult.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so got a couple ground rules today. Again, everybody, we're doing this live, so this is going to be a lot of fun. But as ground rules, just because we have everybody that is going to be on picture but no video, we're going to do a little bit of listening actions here. So I'm going to be asking questions, and I'm going to try and ask a question directly to a person. So when you guys get that, just give a second pause so we can make sure that we're not speaking over each other, but we're going to do the best we can. So with that, before we get into the meat of the
setting
topics,
expectations
I want to give some context as to why each of you were chosen to be with us today. Catherine, let's start with you. Before Xcloud,
he's been watching,
you served as Phil Spencer's chief of staff, bringing with you more than 20 years of product experience. How has that prepared you to step into this leadership role?
So firstly, Brian, I just want to say I wish I could be there in person, but as you know, all our worlds have been turned upside down by
do you think they don't have
this crazy virus? And in fact, I've got two kids in another room doing homeschooling, and my
that is an excellent question.
And fingers crossed, my internet's going
I don't know. I guess they're working from home, and maybe the connection speeds aren't great.
This role. So, you know,
guys,
really, I've
I
spent
have one
the last
comment.
20 years building a career.
She's opening
Light?
a tall, cool one.
I'm pouring myself a nice craft beer right now. It is not a Colt 45.
I joined Xbox as Phil Spencer's chief of staff, and I have to say, that was an incredible experience. I mean, Phil, as we know, is one of gaming's greats. He might blush if I say that, but to have the experience to learn about gaming, alongside him just gave me, incredible insight into where this business is going. And as you know, Brian, we spent a lot of time looking to evolve the Xbox strategy during that period. It was where we stated our goal was to reach the 2 billion gamers on the planet. And we defined our framework as the 3 C's, the content, community, and cloud. And, as you can see, I'm lucky enough now to get to execute
I think I'm going to bail out of this.
with an amazing team, really.
Do you want to stay with it? I don't feel like this is going to be very informative.
Particularly compelling, yeah.
Awesome. Catherine.
I appreciate the making lemonade aspect of what they're trying to do here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a Xbox Series X on the table.
Right, and actually you can tell how huge it is because that guy's really 7 feet tall.
Yeah, they did pick a rather small person to stand next to it.
Yeah. It makes it look big. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I tell you what, John, if you would monitor it, or Carson, why don't you monitor this? And if they say anything interesting, just tell us. We'll pop in. I'm really mostly interested, and I'm sure you guys are in the speeds and the feeds, and unrevealed information. Of course, the price would be nice on the Series X. This looks more like one of those, and I've done a whole lot of them, so I recognize it. Yeah. Corporate presentations on strategy.
I hope there's some. She was talking about it. Oh, they were talking about Xcloud kind of up front, and I wouldn't be surprised if Xcloud was even more prominent in this event than the new console. But
she was the first one they introduced.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Well, keep an eye out, Carson, and we'll jump into it. Carson says, "Stay with it." Is it getting better? Let's check in.
How has your background given you maybe a unique perspective as the product lead for Xbox Series X?
Hey, Brian, thanks for that. So I have a really unique background. And first, I think I would just like to acknowledge I feel very, very fortunate for the experiences that I've had, both in my education and in my professional roles. The red thread kind of across all those is that I've had the honor to work with really great people and do really great things. When I worked with the Indie Game Studio, when we formed that, it was really about building amazing experiences for gamers and really digging deep to understand what would delight them and what experiences they would love. It was also about getting sold on the value of entrepreneurial spirit and agility, and those skills I bring with me.
This is so much like a business conference call.
That was really humbling.
Red thread
awesome
is like,
we were on a personal mission, both of us.
Triggers PTSD over here.
Yeah, me too. That's the problem. We've sat through too many of these.
In our beloved home
I'm going to put my ducks in a row and
Microsoft, it's our mission to strive to
guys all
empower
on the same
every
page.
person.
I mean, she's clearly reading a statement.
And I think we're really fortunate to be in a position to help do that. And so for me, when I think about product, I'm grateful for my experiences, but really I'm most grateful for all of my team's experiences, because I think we all have
her voice could go higher.
Unique experiences that shape the products we build. These products are a reflection
we can
of the
MST
team
the hell out of this if you'd like.
That's good. That's good.
I am certainly.
Now, Chris, let's finish with you real quick.
Teetering on the
You're a
edge of
game
just
designer
doing
by
that.
trade with over 25 years experience in the industry. Now, you've shipped titles like Forza Motorsport, Project Gotham Racing, Crackdown, I could go on. For those unfamiliar with the role
See if he sounds
of
like he's got a giant beard. This would be
would you mind
interesting.
elaborating a little bit?
Sure, happy to.
Oh, he's not
really,
beard guy.
there's,
Darn
there's
it.
two primary roles. One is for the customer.
They couldn't
and that
even
is
get the
purely
pictures on the
to
screen in the
help
order that
galvanize
they were
the
going to
team
talk to them.
to deliver something
Also
which
like
is
when people talk
unexpectedly
about
fun.
the
And I use
product
those words
that they've made as
unexpectedly fun
the product.
purposely.
The product.
Because frankly, when you're in the entertainment industry and you're making a game or you're playing that game, it's very challenging to beat the expectation that somebody has when they expect it to be fun. And so you're really trying to
we
do
expected it to be
something
fun.
that delivers
What were we
I
thinking?
think we're all feeling that right now.
Unexpected fun, where it makes people talk and they talk about your game.
I'm
They're like,
sorry,
hey, wait,
but
they did what?
I kind of expected
I
it
would
would be
expected
fun.
They do that. I need to try that out. And it's really that.
Expected lots of gory gaming videos.
We want at least detail.
Right? Like,
Yeah, a number of people watched the PS5 stream that we did earlier and said, "Where's the games?" But that actually was satisfying. They brought one guy on. He was the lead architect, and he talked in depth, great depth, unusual depth for one of these things, about the technologies and more importantly about the choices they had made and why they made them. And I thought that was interesting.
You know what that reminded me of was at the Pixel announcement last October, they brought, which was terrible for almost the entire event, And then they brought out the photography guy.
Yep.
And I was like, him. More of him.
That's what we always want at Twit.
He was the best.
Yes, we all agreed.
Right?
Because he was the real deal.
Yes.
And he talked
when you're getting it. You're like, oh my
details.
God, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. Right. They made decisions, and they should have had an ultra wide camera in that case, whatever. But I thought that guy was fantastic. And that's what that reminded me of the PS5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between having, product managers tend to be marketers, not engineers.
Sure.
And that's the difference between these people are all product managers. It's all market speak. And what we really want is engineers.
I feel like whenever I see design, we have this conversation all the time in the office, Chris. It's like good products start with good design. So I love having you on the panel.
Thurrott over there. We got to hear what he has to say.
Let's get started. Let's get at this. I know y'all have been waiting for this. Jason, let's kick off with you. There was some big news this week on Xbox Series X. Can you tell us how the technical advances allow developers to unlock new and innovative gaming experiences?
Absolutely. This has been a really exciting week for the team.
He sounds like
the team's been working really hard on Xbox Series X since 2016. And to finally be able to actually share some of the details of what we've been working on has definitely been a highlight for all of us. And, as you mentioned on Monday, we shared many of the details of our next generation console. And it's really about enabling transformative gaming experiences that we've never seen in the living room.
This is Jason Ronald, who has a classically corporate title, Partner Director of Program Management for Xbox.
Like I mentioned before,
that means he's been there a really long time.
You get a longer title the longer you've been there?
I was leading the Xbox Advanced Technology Group. The team worked closely with developers all across the world, making everything from the industry's best blockbusters to competitive esports.
Yeah, I'm going to skip this because this is just marketing. This is not going to give us any technical details, I don't think. This is I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's too bad they did that.
It is a mistake. Yeah.
That's not the way to do that.
Yeah. Well, you had potentially a large audience of people saying, "Yeah, tell us more. Yeah. We're excited.
Right? Yep.
Let's hear more about the Series X."
Excited about the product. We're excited for the meet the challenges.
Yeah.
Excited about my team. Yeah. I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No. Thank you. We have just had it summed up by Paul Thurrott. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Listen, this commentary doesn't come cheap.
I think this image is memeable. Show this screen right now. That is memeable. I'm just saying, if somebody doesn't put a meme up real quick.
I know.
Moving along. So, is there any insight that you can give us about Bill stepping down? Is it just it was a natural transition, right? This was the next step.
The problem is it's been broadly reported as the end of an era. And the end of the era really happened when he stepped down as CEO, although that wasn't the clean break everyone thought it was. He's been stepping back from Microsoft progressively ever since then.
It's been fairly gradual. I mean, he was still consulting, right? He was still talking to Satya Nadella.
I mean, people will say, well, Nadella might have led this cloud charge, but this must have been really Bill Gates.
No.
And it's like, what are you talking
that's
about?
Not the case.
I think we need, as people who work at the company need this, people who follow the company, shareholders, investors, need these transitions to help us move on to these new eras. And so Gates steps down as CEO, but he's the chairman of the board. And he was the chief science officer, whatever it was. Becomes the chairman. Now he's stepping down. He's the advisor today. He's still not really leaving, right? Technically, I mean, he's always there, like Grime or Wormtongue to whisper into Nadella's ear when he needs it, I guess. I mean, there's going to be a post-Nadella world that occurs, and that will be the part of Microsoft where there are no founders left. There are no early employees left. But we can't go from Gates as CEO to that. We have to make these transitions in the middle. And I think this is just part of that natural progression. And Microsoft has been lucky, or maybe that's not the right word, but Microsoft has, Gates has been part of Microsoft since he helped found the company in 1976, I think. 77, 76, 77, whatever it was.
And he still is one of the biggest shareholders. Also,
yeah, and by the way, that doesn't mean he has 40-something% of the stock. He has it's like 1%.
I know it's small. Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just assumed he'd have 10, 15, 20.
No, he's still one of the biggest.
1%.
It's a 1 point something.
I think Steve Ballmer may be the biggest independent shareholder.
But Bill's fortune is, I mean, he goes back and forth from being the richest man in the world alternating with Jeff Bezos. Is his fortune entirely based on that 1% of Microsoft?
Well, no, he's invested his money.
He's got other money.
Well, he's invested. Right, but he's not. Right, he's yeah. I mean, essentially, yes, it all came from that for sure.
But for a long time, that was it, right?
Yep.
Because they always talk about, Bill Gates lost $18 billion today as Microsoft stock tumbled.
Right.
Oh, if a $20 bill fell on the ground, I mean, how much would he lose by stopping to pick it up?
Not worth it. It's got to be 1,000, or it's not worth his time.
Yep.
Yeah. It just, the timing of it was weird because 5 p.m. on a Friday, right? And so
like
people
they're
are
burying
like, why they do it like
they're
that,
burying
right?
it. Yeah.
And I think my pure guess, not no one told me this, but I'm like, you know what? It's been a really tumultuous week in the stock market, and they probably were like, you know what? Our stock has plummeted along with everybody else this week. Let's just announce that Bill's like stepping down, and we'll just take the hit after the market closes.
That's tied to everyone misreported this as the end of an era. In other words, if that, blockbuster news, like as if Microsoft hasn't suffered enough this week, co-founder Bill Gates is walking away from the company. I mean, and plus, not to mention, he's working on world health issues.
Exactly.
I mean, you could make the case like coronavirus is so bad, Microsoft, Gates can't focus on Microsoft anymore. He has to work on the coronavirus.
That would have been a better way to put it, right?
Well, he's doing an AMA
that might have
on
been bad
Reddit.
for the stock, though. But
is Gates doing an AMA? Yeah.
Right now, but about coronavirus, right? Like that's what he's focusing on now. People.
Yeah. I think I have to feel like. So, do you think this was planned for years in this timeline, or maybe coronavirus hastened this?
I don't know. I think he's been a regular board member since 2014, right? So 6 years.
Yeah. He's stepping off the board as well, right? He's not.
He is off the board. Yep.
Yeah.
As well. That's the whole thing. He was chairman for a while, but he'd stepped down for that even a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he was chairman until 2014. Yeah. Then he became a regular board member after that.
Yeah. No, and that's what I mean. He's been kind of slowly. Yeah. There's no one point where Gates just leaves. Like he, until maybe he dies or whatever. I mean, he's always retained. He's retained an ever smaller kind of connection to the company. I'm not saying they never meet. I'm sure that they do, but I can't believe that he exerts a lot of influence over Satya Nadella at this point. It just doesn't seem possible for this man to lead the company and still have to worry about this guy over in the corner.
Yeah.
So
it's good. I mean, I don't think Satya's going, that took a long time. Glad to get rid of him.
No.
But
no, I think their involvement was fairly minimal.
Yeah.
Right. To me, the bigger announcement about Gates stepping away, and I'm saying this partially out of my own self-interest, was in 2008. That's when he left his day-to-day duties at the company. And the reason I know that is that's when I published my book about Microsoft, because I tied it to him leaving the company. Right. So that to me was a big deal. No, I know what you're going to say.
One book every 12 years. That's the rule.
I can help this time.
I
feel like our relationship has grown.
Look,
Mary Jo, you have a nice computer now. It'd be a shame not to write a book.
Driving me to drink.
Oh, I'm glad to see you have the proper Pilsner glass for that.
This is a Teku.
A Teku.
By the way, that's more impressive than you think, because her kitchen is approximately the size of a cardboard box. And the fact that she has room to even store that glass.
How many different glasses for different styles do you have? Do you have them all?
I have
Collect
a
all
lot.
3,000?
I know. I have very limited cupboard space in my kitchen, but one entire cupboard is just beer glass.
That's so great.
It's like
love
the room
that.
The cat's not allowed in. It's full of beer glasses.
It's
Folks,
a personal
priorities.
It's a pet peeve of mine when I go to a restaurant, order a Chimay, and they don't put it in a Chimay glass. They got it.
Yeah.
I know.
That's just like, what are you doing?
I know.
Putting that in a Stella Artois glass. Come on. Come on.
Don't you have any self-respect?
No self-respect. I do want to get the
champagne flute. What are you doing?
That would be funny. Our beer is so fine, you must drink it. We do call it the champagne of bottled beer.
Your pinky's not on the stem, is it, Leo? What are you doing over there?
Let's take a little break. When we come back, I do want to get the inside story on the team's outage, whether it was a COVID thing or something else. Microsoft, I think, says no. Also, here it is, Windows Weekly. We have yet to mention Windows, and there's a lot of Windows news.
Oh, it's backwards world today.
It is. We're doing it upside down. and also the back of the book. And we'll keep an eye on that fascinating panel discussion with Brian Safter in a. Oh, wait a minute! He's moving.
Look at him.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, that's going to be a Xcloud Blade server.
Oh, that's exactly what that is. Fascinating. Is he saying anything of interest? Turn up his sound.
At the global data center level, and it is so cool to take a look at the guts of this thing because, wow, like the tech that went into this, the making of this is unbelievably
Tell
impressive.
us about the tech, Brian.
Catherine, back to the question. Walk us through Microsoft's approach in bringing Xcloud to market.
What's the red line through?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Brian, when you just took off there, I had no idea where you were going. I was just like, well, where's he going now? But you're seeing our Blade, and I mean, it is so cool. And it is, Rachel said it earlier, our product's a testament to the amazing teams that build them. And, looking at this, I just couldn't be more proud. So going
That's
back
exactly as you predicted, Paul.
We think we are at the very beginning of a
you could create a simple AI that would just generate these sentences.
Why we're not getting videos of these people.
We do know right now, and that's exactly why we came to market with our preview plan, where
That's exciting, Steve.
It seems like an age ago now. But
Okay, so this is enough. This is going to be all market speak. It's not going to be any speeds and feeds or anything like that.
What is the audience for this? I'm confused.
I know.
Not us. Not me. Opportunity missed.
They weren't going to do this at GDC, were they?
Oh, God. Can you imagine doing that in front of a bunch of developers?
I know.
Well,
I know.
Yeah, it'd be like a panel thing, and you could just picture people walking out, They'll walk up to the stage, take a couple pictures of the console, and then walk out the side door.
Yeah.
No, you know what you do on this kind of event? You have Dave Cutler come in and make a guest appearance.
Thank you.
And just take over.
Or Keanu Reeves. Either Dave Cutler or Keanu Reeves.
Either one.
Either one. Go one way or the other.
Oh, man.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back with more. If anything happens, we'll let you know, but there doesn't look like there's going to be anything. I mean, they're doing a nice close-up of the box. Is she saying what's in there? Let's see.
Meeting with a developer, we would take their game running on a mobile phone and hand it to them to play. And at that point, there was always silence in the room, and we kind of would look around the room and think, well, what's going on? And then the partner would start sort of looking around the room and talking to their teams and saying, well, who worked on this? And it was very clear that no one had worked on it because
that's enough.
You build for Xbox,
no one had worked on it. We'll be back. If anything happens, we'll let you know. Our show today, we're going to come back and talk about Windows and Teams and back of the book. But right now, our show today brought to you by LastPass. In fact, I feel bad because LastPass normally brings you our news events, but there just really wasn't much news in that event. So thank you, LastPass. They provide the wherewithal for us to do so much of what we do here, including the LastPass studios that we're broadcasting from. And we use LastPass. I mean, that's the truth of it. It's something I've been using for 10 years. I just set up a new computer. Every time I set up a new device, smartphone, Android, iOS, computer, Windows, Mac, Linux, the very first thing I install is LastPass. Because LastPass then lets me log in easily to everything else, lets me set everything else automatically and easily. I have to have my LastPass. And LastPass is great because I have it, not only don't have to remember any of my passwords, it generates great, long, strong, unique passwords for every single site, every single app. And then it locks it down in the LastPass vault. I have to remember one master password. I use a good, long, strong one. And then LastPass lets me use two-factor authentication. I use a YubiKey. But you can also use an authenticator. There's lots of ways you can make LastPass even more secure. And the best part about LastPass is that your data, that LastPass password vault, is never encrypted anywhere but on your device. Your master password, the keys used to encrypt and decrypt data are never sent. This is really important. Never sent to LastPass servers, never accessible by LastPass. And they verify that with independent third-party security firms on a routine basis to audit and test their service, their infrastructure, so that you can feel confident your most trusted data is safe and only visible to you thanks to LastPass. I consider it my secure enclave. I put my passports images in there when I travel, my driver's license, social security numbers, everything. That's the one place I have that I know only I can see. So that is a huge value. We use LastPass in business too. You know, I have pretty good password hygiene thanks to LastPass Premium at home and LastPass Families with my family. But at business, you have employees who may or may not understand password security. So it's really important you protect the keys to the kingdom, secure every access point in your business, because that's your checking account, your bank account, that's your databases, that's your website, that's everything. And that's got to be kept secure. It's normally a challenge to have something easy to use and convenient and secure, but that's what LastPass does so well. They improve security without impacting employee productivity. It's a perfect balance of strong security that's easy for your employees to use and manage. And employees love it. They benefit from something that they like. They can use, for instance, single sign-on, which is part of LastPass Identity, their enterprise solution. They have actually many solutions for business. But as an example, LastPass Identity, there are over 1,200 pre-integrated single sign-on applications. Users love this. They don't even have to enter a password. They verify on their phone and they're in. And you love it because they don't have the password. They can't share it. They can't give it away. You can easily control access. You always know who's in there. They also have adaptive authentication as part of LastPass Identity, which combines biometrics with contextual intelligence, things like geolocation, IP address, to make sure that that user is the one who's supposed to access it and no one else. I think this is so great. It's easy to deploy. It's easy to use. It gives your IT department all sorts of useful tools, 100-plus policies to manage users at the app, individual, group, or organizational level. For instance, we require two-factor authentication. We have standards for the master password, so we can make sure our users are doing it right. Honestly, as a business owner, you have to use LastPass. I don't know why you would not use it. You've got to use it. I would worry for you if you don't. Go to lastpass.com/twit and be reassured. Increased security does not have to be complex. LastPass makes identity and access management easy for IT to manage and easy for employees to use. It's got to be easy for them to use or they won't use it. Start your password journey today. Visit lastpass.com/twit and find out how they can help you. We love LastPass. We use it all the time. I tell everybody in my family to use it. I got my mom on it. Steve Gibson uses it. It's the way. lastpass.com/twit. Thank you, LastPass. Thank you. Let's talk about the Teams outage, because I just assumed, as I'm sure everybody did, because of the timing, it was just, Microsoft's giving away Teams, everybody's going to sign on, and it just crashed the network. Not so?
Yeah. It could have been partially because of that, but if you look at the down detector map of where it went down yesterday, it was Europe, right in the middle of the start of the day there. And it was down for a few hours, then it came back up, and then it went down again. Right. So they had two outages back to back. They said in their very short post-mortem that it was because of a caching issue with their infrastructure, and they didn't say anything else besides that so far. But yeah, people were kind of flipping out because
it's terrible timing.
Once it was down for the first 2 hours and then it came back, everyone's like, "Oh, right. Good," and then people were screaming on Twitter at the Microsoft 365 status account. They're like, "It's down again! You guys said it's the issue's closed," and so then they have to reopen it and reroute the servers. So yeah, it was not a great day for Teams yesterday.
These things happen, but
they happen. They happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This is why I have everything on a USB stick.
Is that why?
No, but this is some feedback.
That's what they say. I can never trust the cloud. I can never trust the cloud.
I don't know. In the comments on Twitter, someone said, you know what they need to do is make a version of Teams that you can put on a server, and we could put it inside of our business. And then if the cloud service went down, it's like, guys, first of all, it's not 1979. And secondly, it is literally a cloud service. That's the point of it. It is beginning, it is a cloud service. I don't know. Some people still, they can't grasp that the world has moved on.
Yeah. All right. It is a Windows podcast, and there is something to talk about with Windows 10.
A lot to talk about, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get going here. Big number. That's the big one, right? Paul Thurrott, how many people use Windows 10?
Well, it's somewhere between 1 billion and a number bigger than a billion, baby, because they finally did it. Yep. So there are two interesting things about this. The obvious one, of course, is that January 2015, we often reference this. Terry Morrison made the bold claim that between 2 and 3 years, Microsoft would have over 1 billion. I think they were saying active devices at that time. And then about a year and a half later, they had to make the uncomfortable revelation that they weren't going to meet that goal. Windows 10 usage has actually grown pretty strongly over over almost 5 years. But, so it took them roughly twice as long as they originally thought. Fine. But to me, the bigger deal here is they actually said users. So every other time they've talked about this number milestone for Windows 10, they've talked about active devices, the vast majority of which are PCs, but devices, active devices, This time they literally said there are over 1 billion active users using Windows 10 across over 1 billion active devices. I believe it is literally the only and first time that they've ever said this.
Really?
And so
it's
I think
such
that's
a good
really
number too, though. I mean, that's
well, because you could always make the case.
How many total Windows of all kinds users? It's not much more than 1.5 billion, I think, right?
Well, see now, right? So we could calculate this, right? So if you went to net market share right now, and you looked at the number of, not that this is a perfect number, but you could look at the percentage of PCs that are running Windows 10, and then we could do some math, right? So if it's 60% of the number of I don't know what the number is. I'm not looking at it, but 1 billion is 60% of what number, or whatever the number is. I mean, that would be the rough estimate. I mean, Microsoft, I believe, even fairly recently has said, what was it? Did they say 1.5 recently, or did they change that number? I don't remember.
I feel like that's the number in my head anyway. I feel like that they've said that. It's close. It's around there, right?
It's around 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1.5. All right. So, let's see. So if we go to operating systems on net market share, a desktop.
Watch this as Paul Thurrott
watch Paul do math in real time. This is not going to go well, folks. Let's be honest.
It's not going to go
So Windows,
well.
Actually, this one's going to be easy.
You can see
50% of the computers that are online are running, 50% are running Windows 10. That means there are 2 billion.
2 billion. That's probably about right. 2 billion.
That includes Mac, includes Linux. Those things are relatively small, obviously. 31% running Windows 7.
Yikes.
Still.
But this is a huge success for Windows 10. This shows that forcing people to go to Windows 10, EOLing Windows 7, all the things they've done, this is what, and as painful as that's been in some cases, this is what you want. You want the majority of the users on the current OS.
There's also the potential market available. So like I just said, for example, 31% is a little over 600 million people running Windows 7. At some point, those people are probably going to move on. That might mean they stop using computers. It might mean they get a Mac or a Chromebook. I think in many cases it will mean they upgrade to Windows 10 or get a Windows 10 computer. So potentially Windows 10 could reach somewhere up in the close to 1.5 billion at some point, maybe.
It's mind-boggling.
But it does establish...
That's really mind-boggling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't have exact numbers, but I think it was last May, Google said, was it 2.5 billion people using Android?
Yeah, that's the most
used
operating
system. A year and a half before that, I'm sorry, 6 months before that, Apple said that there were 1.5 billion people in its entire ecosystem. I don't remember where this number came from, but it was like 900 million were on iPhone. So there's that audience. And, Windows 10 is right in the mix, so.
How many of the billion users do you think had their systems crash when they updated on Patch Tuesday yesterday?
Let's see. So, there is an interesting conversation to be had around if Microsoft says something like a small number of users experienced blah blah blah, do they literally mean a small number of users or a small percentage of the total number of users? Which, by the way, is still a lot of users.
Yeah,
right?
If it's 1/10 of 1% of 1 billion, watch me do math. That's 10 million people.
Right, millions. Yes, it's millions. So, I mean, and
you know what's funny? Did you have people ask you what percentage of the 1 billion is people using Xbox? What percentage is people using Windows phones? Someone asked me that.
Yeah. So, by the way, it's a reasonable question. So
that's what I said.
Here's something to think about with regards to that. Like I said that the vast majority were PCs because they are.
Yeah. They are.
The estimate on Xbox usage is somewhere in the 30 to 50 million range. That is by far the biggest non-PC market for Windows 10. So what percentage of 1 billion is 30, we'll call it 40 million, right?
Yeah, it's nothing.
It's a tiny, so the percentage, the total audience size of active users
0.4%.
Yeah, is who are not using PCs that are running Windows 10 is single digits, you know.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when you get to numbers this big, it's 40 million sounds like a lot, but when you get to numbers, when you get to a billion,
40 million is suddenly a rounding error.
Now, you know what's interesting, because a billion used to mean something different in the UK and in the US. Here, it's 1,000 million, and I was always told by our British listeners, "Oh no, that's a million." There's a big difference. Yeah.
There's an exponential difference.
Yeah. But I think worldwide have we branded the British billion? Is it all 1,000 million?
British when it comes to English?
Is this just me? Maybe I'm fantasizing. Yeah. I don't know.
I've never heard that, but I don't know.
A chat room, we've got people in the UK.
Isn't
what does a billion mean?
It's like a gazillion or something, or some crazy number, like some.
Yeah.
The British.
It's probably a Google.
Yeah. Okay. According to Wikipedia, the British billion has been deprecated.
Yeah.
So
just like the British English.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The historic definition of billion in British English was a million, or 10 to the 12th.
Yep.
We've always used 1,000 million.
Yeah.
And the Brits used to call that a milliard. Excuse me, but that's a milliard.
Milliard.
Yeah.
Milliard. I like it. That's a good word.
But so there's
Terry Myerson say we're going to have a milliard.
A milliard. We have a milliard. No, I'm sorry. It's not a billion. It's a milliard of users.
I like Terry, but he had math problems.
So I think partly because of the dominance of U.S. technology companies, a billion now is just 1,000 million.
We live in an industry where we argue about 1,000 versus 1,024 to describe memory sizes and things.
Right. It's 10 to the 9th. Let's just all agree. There are 10 to the 9th users.
It's a lot of zeros.
It's 9 zeros.
A lot of zeros running Windows 10 out there.
Man, you're in the triple comma club. That's all I can say. 1 milliard users. Now, I wonder, though, if you get a million, if that's a billiard. I don't know.
Billiard.
That's how rich Bill Gates is. He's a billiardaire.
He's a billiard.
Yep. I thought we weren't allowed to call them that anymore.
Bill's nickname, Billiard.
Billiard.
That's the name he writes, like when he goes bowling, and you can have a funny name up on the screen.
That's what they call him at Starbucks. I have a double cappuccino for billiard. There's a billiard.
Small black coffee with 8 sugars.
Okay. So triple comma club for Windows 10. And really that is a good thing, because that means you have a solid base. Everybody's on it. It's a lot easier to.
Well, by the way, that is actually kind of the important thing. I mean, you were talking about how many people were impacted by whatever problem. I mean, realistically speaking, that will happen, of course. There'll be mistakes, but one of the reasons that Microsoft wanted to get as many people as possible in the same version of Windows was to ease updating and to make the quality of those updates higher. Of course, they don't help matters by shipping updates on
Excuse me for a moment. We are looking once again at the server. Let's see what they're saying.
We're still on this?
And share.
I want to
that
talk
with
about the
more
product
people.
team. I'm really proud of them.
Certainly, that was the goal that we set out to accomplish. And better together.
The product
really just means being super attuned
Better
to letting
together
gamers
is Android's
get closer
slogan.
to the thing that they love.
You know, I want to give a plug real quick for some content that we had that was pre-done before the show taped, and it was this Xcloud talk that we have up on our on-demand site. So if you go to aka.ms/GameStackLab and you check out some of the Xcloud content that's up on our YouTube page on demand, there's some fascinating stuff that's going on around the team and how they think about building for the platform. And Chris, I almost just want to ask a real quick follow-up on, which is like, with regards to design itself, what are some of the challenges when trying to design a UI or a UX that can map across multiple devices?
Well, it's hard.
Oh, there's a lot. For the user, I mean, there's literally like, hey, what's the type ramp and how do you make it work in multiple locations?
I still think,
whether the angular pixel density is different on a 10-foot screen than on something that's, a foot or two in front of you, right? There's a bunch of just kind of technical details related to design.
Which I'm not going to talk about.
Really, when you think about what that UI is there to do.
Did I mention the teraflops yet? There are 12
and
of
so
them.
the thing that might be appropriate in terms of, hey, I want to play right now.
They're not going to teraflop
and
themselves.
This is how I want to interact with the game I love.
Yeah, this is so 30,000 foot. I just don't think this is useful,
you might want to present more of a social view into that thing when you're looking at it on a cell phone.
Yeah. I hate calling it this. Windows 10 version 2004.
2004.
2004.
2004. 22.
16 years in the making. Windows 10 2004.
004.
All right, 2004. Okay. They should put a slash in there or something. A dash.
I like H1, H2.
I do too. I don't know why they didn't do that. That's so perfect.
I wish they would use that.
It's obvious what it is. And it doesn't tie them to a month, which is dumb.
I know. It's perfect. Why can't their version scheme must be based on some 16-bit integer or something.
Oh, maybe it has to be a number?
Yeah.
You think? I mean, the code names are H1, H2.
Right. But that used to be a string replace thing,
IT people like numbers.
Yeah.
Like 1903, 1809. People kind of...
They could call it 2 Milliard 04.
They could.
There is, by the way, the next Ubuntu, which comes out next month, is 20.04.
Oh, no.
There you go. That works.
Yeah.
But again, I like keeping it vague. Well, no, I mean, I think it's...
No,
it's
H1, in other words. Yeah, because that could be anywhere from 1 to 6, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Don't stress over it.
Well, we are. It's so what I'm noticing, for instance, Google just announced, don't expect Chrome updates or Chrome OS updates on schedule because everybody's at home now. And I'm wondering, is that going to impact the shipping schedule for Microsoft? Are they still on track?
I'm sorry, does someone have to be physically in the office to hit a button or something? Why does...
Here's what's interesting. It's turning out to be more complicated. Apple's had this problem because Apple is really locked down. And if an employee's not on premises, they may not have access to a lot of the resources for security reasons.
Yeah.
You can VPN in, but they don't even, and this is Apple, of course, but they don't even want people to...
you draw straws, and Bob, I'm sorry, you got to drive to the office and hit the red button.
We have an engineer here at all times because we can't do the shows without an engineer. We just make sure that there's not more than one so they don't, cross-infect each other. That's an essential personnel, but I guess, look, I'm not going to knock Microsoft for wanting to protect their employees. That's a good thing.
No, what if this happened? Okay, they hit the button remotely, the big red button, right?
Yeah.
And then say what happened to 1809 happens again, and all of a sudden there's all these problems. Somebody's going to have to go in.
How is being if you're in the office?
It's kind of like Chernobyl when they
bump into each other like it's a Three Stooges routine or something.
Somebody's going to have to dig under the reactor. It's you, Sergey. You're going in.
You grab this stick and you hit the power switch through the server cage and you wait for it to reboot.
Turn it on and off. It didn't work for 2020, so
Yeah. Well, then they were there, so maybe them not being there will be better. I don't know.
Maybe. No, I just think they're being overly cautious, which might not be a bad thing.
They're protecting their employees.
They are absolutely
protecting their
overly
community.
Cautious.
Honestly, I can't knock them for that.
If this is what
I bet it's
going
to happen on Patch Tuesday for April now, right?
Like,
so that's not that far away. A couple.
And by the way, April is the 4th month, so nailed it.
If I were Microsoft, I'd take any opportunity not to do a Patch Tuesday update. It has not gone well for them in the last couple of months.
By the way, they love Patch Tuesday so much they spread it out to different Tuesdays.
Yeah,
now. It's not even
Tuesdays.
once a month. It's more than once a month. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you have to patch the Patch Tuesday patch.
It's every week.
All right. So this is kind of hard to explain, but Windows 10 version 2004 is now in the slow ring, right? Because the fast ring has moved forward to the next version. It has received, by my count, I think four cumulative updates since they, finalized it. We always have to use that kind of air quotes thing there. I've been told by people that this one has gone out to people who are running 2004 but are not in the slow ring anymore. So another indication, like it's kind of poised for release. But there's actually some really big news that was tied to this announcement, which is that they're going to change how they deploy, I guess. Yeah, the Windows subsystem for Linux version 2.
Yeah.
And that will start in 2004.
Yeah.
Which is right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
Although it's weird. I know. Yeah, it's a huge deal. And they just kind of threw it out there in a post or a tweet on Friday also. Same day they did the Bill Gates announcement. And so they said, by the way, after a lot of user feedback, we've decided to remove the Microsoft developed Linux kernel from the Windows OS image. And we're going to instead make that come through the store. You'll still be able to install all your favorite Linux distros on top of this. That's not changing. But we're going to change this starting with the next version of Windows, which is 2004, right? But then if you read into their blog post further, it says you're going to have to do this manually, I believe, for 2004. But then after that, it'll kick in and it will just start happening automatically.
So just so people understand what that means, if you're running what am I running? let me look at what I'm running before I say this. I am running 2004. Well, okay, that's interesting because Windows has long had a control panel called Windows Features. It's how you turn optional Windows features on and off. That is where you would go to install the Windows subsystem for Linux, which actually is still showing up in that list.
Yeah.
But that should be changing as a result of this announcement. Yes. Maybe this is something yet to come because, of course, 2004 is not out, so they could still change it. Right. So this is kind of interesting because we've been talking, for a while now that isn't it fascinating that Windows will include a Linux kernel in the box?
Yeah.
But now it technically won't.
Nope.
I mean, you'll still be able to install it.
And it won't install automatically. You still have to to check that box.
Yeah. Right.
But once it's installed, then every time they update it, you'll get the update automatically through the store.
Right. So
that makes sense.
That might be the point of it, right? Because under the old system, the Linux kernel
it was there, but not active
with the operating system.
Yeah.
And I have to say that might have been a security issue as well, right? You don't want to put software on there that's not being used.
Yeah.
And can't be updated easily or at all until 6 months from now.
Honestly, I think that's probably the reason.
That could be it.
It makes sense. Yep. It also takes up space. I mean, there's lots of reasons you don't want to include a big
It's funny,
blob.
they compared this to, it's going to be delivered and updated through Windows Update the same way that third-party drivers, like graphics or touchpad drivers, are installed and updated on your machine today. It's just like a touchpad driver.
It's an entirely different
Linux
operating
kernel,
system.
Touchpad driver.
Right, exactly. But it's a lot like a touchpad driver. I'm just saying. There's software, you get a little interface.
It's all the same thing. It is.
It's a funny way to describe it. But,
it is. Yeah. Most people I saw were jazzed about them making this change. I saw a few people saying, but why are they really doing it?
Well, I think we've come up with some good reasons.
I think so too. So
I think the reasons are good.
Yeah.
Do you know why people were excited by this or happy about it?
Okay. So the reason people were initially excited about the fact that it was going to be bundled with Windows is that's symbolic. Right? That's a huge symbolic deal.
I agree.
But in hindsight, it makes absolutely no sense if somebody hasn't turned it on to bundle a whole second operating system just in case you might turn it on. And I think that coupled with the idea that it's harder to update if it's done that way, because it's now an operating system update. It's really the real question is, why did they do it any other way? Why were they thinking of doing it that way? It makes more sense to do it this way.
Once you are confronted by this change, it's like, oh, yeah, this actually makes sense. Yeah. This is the way it should be.
The Linux kernel, I don't know what Microsoft's going to do with because they have their own custom kernel. But if it's presumably based on the, kind of official Linux kernel, that gets updated pretty regularly. Much more than you would update an operating system, much more than quarterly.
Yep.
So that might be another reason. And you do really want to be able to update it fast if people are using it. I don't know how exposed it is to the outside world. I don't know if maybe they've containerized WSL or I don't know.
I don't understand if there's any infrastructure difference between a Microsoft Store update and a Windows update, other than the fact that Windows updates are not installed by default or not automatically in many situations. You often have to okay them or, trigger a reboot or whatever it is. And the store just seems like a more seamless experience that happens.
It does it behind the scenes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no one ever notices.
So maybe
it,
that is preferable, actually.
It might be, for something like this and for the security reasons you raised, you want to be able to issue those updates, I guess. I mean, that's interesting. I don't know.
I'm sure if Microsoft would reveal it, which they won't, I'm sure there's a good reason.
Well, they did reveal it.
No, they just said,
it's like a touchpad driver, guys. Why are we overthinking this?
No, they said they wanted to make updates more seamless. That's what they said, based on
that's
there
a
you
good
go.
reason. There you go. Good.
Yeah.
That will do it.
And the touchpad driver thing.
And the touchpad thing. Yeah. If you go to mouse settings and click advanced, you'll find the Linux control panel, and it's just like that.
Yeah.
Let's take another break. More Windows 10 news in just a bit. Our show brought to you by my friend Melissa. Melissa is just what you need if you have a mailing list, if you have an address list, email addresses. Melissa is the leader in address verification, and I shouldn't have to tell you why that's important. Every address is in the Melissa database, from Adelaide, Australia to Zipaquirá, Colombia, and everywhere in between. Look, there's nothing good about bad data. It costs money, it hurts sales, it decreases customer satisfaction. I told that story. I was getting 4 or 5 big, thick catalogs from Restoration Hardware because they somehow didn't dedupe my address. Same catalog. Killing trees for no good reason. It just made me mad. Don't make your customers mad. If bad addresses, duplicate records, bouncing emails are hurting your business, isn't it time to come clean with Melissa? Look who uses Melissa. Lots of businesses. I think something like 10,000 organizations worldwide use Melissa, like Delta Faucet. They use it in their call center. See, Melissa has a great API. They do global address auto-completion in their call center software from Melissa. Guaranteed good addresses. It actually works for Z1 Motorsports kind of the same way, but in this case, it helps them reduce fraudulent e-commerce transactions. That's Z1 Motorsports. They were able to reduce their fraudulent transactions by 90% using Melissa. Melissa provides the full spectrum of data quality protection for customer data. You can verify postal addresses, mobile numbers, email addresses. I love the fact that you can update the addresses of customers that have moved and, of course, eliminate duplicate records, which costs you money and customer goodwill. Gain additional customer insight into your data, too. Melissa has analytics you can apply to your mailing list. You can easily build in address verification, customer data validation in your custom application using that Melissa API. They also have CRM cloud connectors, e-commerce plugins, or you just upload a file and they'll give you a quick data cleanse. It's kind of nice. Melissa's serious, too, about securely managing your data. They continually undergo independent security audits to reinforce their commitment to data security, to privacy, to compliance. With SOC2, with HIPAA, with GDPR, you bet. I didn't know this. That blows me away. Mailers spend about $20 billion a year in toto in undeliverable mail. So don't lose customers. Don't lose cash. Make every address count. Bad data happens to good companies. 10,000 organizations worldwide trust Melissa to get their customer data clean and accurate. You get started right now with 25,000 records cleaned for free That's a $75 value at melissa.com/twit. Give it a try. See what they can do for you. Melissa, MELISSA.com/twit. Or you can call them. They're nice people. Nice Canadians. 1-800-MELISSA. Find out more. 1-800-MELISSA. Bad data, good companies, bad mix. Thank you, Melissa, for supporting Windows Weekly. We really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting us by using that address. melissa.com/twit. Edge, or are we not calling it Credge anymore? Is it done now? Can we just call it Edge?
No, we're still calling it
Oh, okay. And now your Credge update.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. Before we get to that,
oh yes,
where are we in this thing? I just want to mention this real quick because last week and then again today, they issued new builds to the fast ring, and so this is 20H2. Neither of these builds had any dramatic new features, but concurrent with the last build, the build from last week, they announced some changes that are coming to the Europhone app. First, to the latest Galaxy S20 devices, and I guess the Z Flip as well. Where you'll be able to copy and paste between your PC and your phone in certain markets, which is kind of cool in both directions. And they're also enabling RCS messaging if you have an S20, and then eventually other, Android phones that support RCS messaging through the Europhone app. So, again, this Europhone app that kind of got off to a rough start, wasn't particularly interesting, has turned into, as anyone who uses this, I think will tell you, it's just like an absolutely essential thing to have on your computer.
Can you go full screen on the Microsoft GameStack Live?
Yep.
See that in the upper right-hand corner? It says Discord chat.
Yep.
Are they using Discord? Why aren't they using Teams?
We're going to pack a stadium with people to go watch
What are they doing?
That wouldn't be the case.
So the Europhone app.
Okay. I noticed that, and I thought, well, that's odd. Discord. Okay.
Maybe
your
they
phone.
wanted it to
work. I don't know. Discord was also down. People often thought because of COVID, everybody using it.
It's like when you have a meeting with LinkedIn and they're using like Zoom or something, and it's like, guys, seriously.
What? You got.
I know.
Teams is still having problems. Is that possible?
No.
God, that would be embarrassing if this whole thing was planned on Teams.
No,
I don't think that's
and it didn't work. Oh, okay.
So
Microsoft lets these parts of the business be a little too independent.
I don't understand why they're using Mixer for anything at this point. I don't think it works that well. I know they own it. I know they're trying to fix it and make it better. But I feel like whenever I've tried to dial into a Windows Insider chat on Mixer, it never works. Like, never. So maybe they're just having backup systems to their own system. I don't know.
I think the world's in a weird place. This is completely off point, but I watched on Tuesday night after the primaries Joe Biden's, victory speech, which would normally be held in a big hall with a lot of people.
Right.
It apparently was streamed from his home in Delaware on something that was very low quality.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he lives in Delaware. I mean,
it was like, was he using Zoom for this? What is he doing?
Yeah.
It wasn't even as good as Zoom. Maybe he was using Mixer. I don't know.
Look,
he had his Xbox.
Looking at Microsoft events that these guys are used to doing stuff like this, and this is kind of weird and
So I feel like
it's going to be an awkward transition.
Life is hard right now.
Yeah.
We're all, I'm going to withhold criticism. We're all just finding our way now.
Well, I mean, it's a little weirder in Microsoft's case, frankly.
They should have this down.
Yeah.
They need to get Alex Lindsay in there.
I mean, how's Apple going to have like an event? They're going to cue like an applause track, like it's like sitcom from the 80s,
I know.
70s or whatever.
Did you watch last week tonight? John Oliver's show on Sunday. He did it in a white room with no audience, and it was the same jokes. It was just as funny, I guess, but I didn't know because I didn't hear the audience. Every joke went thud.
Yeah, it's like watching a rehearsal.
It's weird.
Yep.
Yeah. Discord is being used all week for fan interaction and questions since it's open public facing. Of course, Teams, you'd have to have an account. Well, I don't know. Whatever.
You okay?
It could be an opportunity to show off our technology.
You know what? They got the MVP Summit running on Teams. They got their entire workforce on Teams and all their customers on Teams. Maybe they should
Maybe try Teams. Oh, diversify.
Or maybe they think gamers don't care.
Well,
about
I think that's
teams
it's Game Developers Conference, so it must be, we got to use Discord.
Right.
Look at you guys excusing this behavior. It's awesome.
Why aren't they using Skype? That's what I want to know.
Oh, boy.
So, and today there was another fast ring build, right?
Yeah, and nothing in it. Nothing. It's just like that. Okay. Yep. Which, kind of supporting the notion that 20H2 will be a very minor update, just like 19H2 was. So.
Right.
1909, whatever.
That's good, right?
It is good. Yeah, it's exactly what they should be doing.
Less
they
is
should
more.
be doing one release every 3 years. But whatever. This is the better than what they were doing.
Yes.
For sure.
Let's not be too ambitious, Microsoft.
Yep. Baby steps.
Now let's get to the Edge roadmap.
Yeah, this is awesome. And this is one of the best things about Edge going the way they've gone, which is these guys are being really open about how they're updating the product, because I love calling it the product. And
there's a red line through everything, Paul.
See how easy you fall into it? Like, let me tell you something about the product. The product's great. I'm really proud of my team. So they had provided what I think was the first roadmap update last month. And then this month they released a new one. And basically everything that was under review is like, yeah, we're doing all of it, And some of it's pretty cool. Like there have been people who have been asking for things like, I want to hide the Bing search bar in the new tab page. I don't want that. Or I want to be able to put my own pictures on the new tab page. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do all that stuff. And they say these things are happening in March. Now, we got to clarify that a little bit. They don't say this, but they must mean in Canary, right? Because they do
Canary's their
Chromium
beta
style.
early beta.
It's the Canary's daily. So I would put this out 12 weeks probably, or 6 to 12 weeks for the broad public release in the stable channel. But they have agreed to implement a bunch of the stuff that people have been asking for. So there's some really good news in there if you go and look at the stuff they're going to do.
What the best one is?
Pretty quickly.
I'm going to weigh in.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing, add an option to hide the Bing search bar on the new tab page. You know why that's good? Because that's the one place you can't change Bing as the search engine. Right.
So the way you get around that now is you can install an extension that changes the new tab page.
Yeah.
So I use one called Momentum, but I'm sure there are many others. Yeah. So the issue there is you could go into settings, and God help you finding this thing, but it's in there, and you could change the search engine to Google or whatever you want to use up in the address bar, but it's always going to be Bing from that the new tab page, the default one you get from Microsoft. So I give them credit. The company that supposedly is trying to steal all your privacy or whatever in their browser is giving you the ability to turn off every link they have to Bing. So, I mean, I think that speaks more to the company I thought they were, than the one described in that academic paper.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
You guys, somebody asked me, what is your default browser? Both of you use Edge?
Yeah.
Edge on my PC, but still Chrome on my phone.
Oh, I use Edge everywhere.
You do?
And you both use Android phones, so you can make Edge your default.
It's an actual default.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, there was a rumor. I would love to see this, that Apple might, in the next version of iOS, allow you to change the default browser. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and the ability to actually put an icon somewhere on the screen where you want it, not just in some cascading order.
Don't get crazy.
Is among the top reasons I don't use iOS.
Yeah, don't go crazy.
That
supposedly they're going to add such a UI improvement. In addition to the icons, you're going to be able to have a list of your applications.
Oh, imagine that.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe the code name for that product is Android.
minus the widgets, the usability.
You can see all your apps alphabetically in a list. Interesting.
What a thought.
Is there going to be like a swipe? Maybe swipe up from the bottom?
Come on, that's just crazy talk.
I'm just saying.
Wait a minute.
It's crazy talk.
It's a good idea.
Okay, there's PWA, Progressive Web Apps, which really is the thing you should use instead of Xamarin. Okay. But having said that, there's also UWP, and I always confuse the two. There's a lot of W's.
UWP is the one that's going away, and PWA is the one that's coming. That's how you.
Okay. So it's wired and tired. PWA is wired.
Yes.
UWP is tired.
Yes. Okay. It's Tesla and DeLorean.
Okay. Except that UWP is not made out of stainless steel.
Right.
So UWP, and again, I'm confused. I thought that was the Microsoft Store platform.
It was.
Okay.
Leo, I'm surprised you're confused by this because it is insanely confusing.
Yeah.
So the UWP is the successor to the Metro app style that they originally created for Windows 8. It's a mobile app platform. These were originally the only apps that were going to be deployed through the Windows Store at the time, now the Microsoft Store. They support all the mobile app things that you get on iOS or Android, like these apps go to sleep automatically and Tombstone and are pushed out of memory if needed, although this is less likely on a big computer than it is on a phone. This platform has not been successful. But one of the things they did do to UWP over time, which, frankly was a pretty good idea, was make it possible for a developer to write a single app, theoretically, that could run across all the different variants of Windows 10, including HoloLens and Surface Hub and Xbox, and at the time, Windows Mobile / Windows Phone. UWP, didn't really take off with the developers for a variety of reasons. I often now point back to what Microsoft did in the Longhorn timeframe when they announced Avalon, which became WPF. I don't remember the code. Indigo, I think, was WCF, the Windows Communications Foundation. There were some other things. I don't remember all of them, but at the time of announcement, those things were all going to be Longhorn specific, and developers complained, and they made them available on Windows XP, and I think on Windows 2000 initially too. But this time around with the mobile stuff, they were like, no, we're just going to do it on the modern version of Windows. We're not going to backport it to Windows 7. And I think that was among the many reasons why this stuff has not done well. So Windows 10 today, including version 2004, ships with a bunch of UWP apps in the box, so to speak, Mail and Calendar, People, and Skype, and OneNote too, actually. And I don't remember when it was, a couple of months ago, they announced that they were bringing back the classic desktop version of OneNote from the dead. They were going to start updating again, make it just as good as the UWP version. They didn't say this, but obviously I think the intent there is they'll eventually get rid of that. And then this week, they haven't announced it, but an Italian tech blog noticed that the preview version of Skype that appears in the store is no longer or actually maybe it was might have been a web app, but it was either a web app or UWP app, is now just the desktop app. It's the old client. It looks like they're bringing that back too, so it's available in the store. And
built-in Electron, by the way.
Oh,
Electron app.
God.
Okay.
Yep.
So if there's anything worse than UWP, it's Electron.
Yeah, that's probably true. So
Teams clients also built in Electron.
What is? Oh, Teams is, yeah.
Yeah, and so Skype, right? I mean, Electron is the problem with Electron. It's Chrome, and every single Electron app has an entire embedded version of Chrome in it.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Right.
Heavy, man.
It's heavy. A web app should be light. That's part of the point. Anyway. So it looks like we'll see what happens here. I mean, this just happened. Microsoft hasn't announced anything. It's the preview version. This isn't going to impact anybody today. I am right now using the UWP, and Mary Jo is too, I'm sure, version of Skype to make this call to do this recording. That's not going to change, in the next weeks, months. But it is interesting that they, without any fanfare at all, just kind of quietly push the next version of Skype, the preview version, over back to the desktop, the classic desktop.
Is that Electron or?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Is it? Is that what it is? I don't know. I don't know how they make it.
That's right.
It's probably Quick Basic.
Remember, everyone was so mad when they were going to kill the desktop version of Skype and only go UWP.
Yeah.
Now, they brought it back.
Partly because
but okay, but the reason is that at the time the Skype version was
they didn't have feature
version
parity.
Was terrible.
Yeah, they didn't have feature parity.
Right.
You got it
right. They finally they brought in all the features from the desktop that everyone wanted, and of course then it's acceptable. I mean,
yeah. I don't think people care what the underlying technology is, even if it's Electron. Although, places like Reddit, you see nonstop complaints about Electron. It's like, why are you using Electron? The advantage of using
Electron's it's like the new Flash.
Yeah. Well, the advantage is it makes it easy to write apps. I wish people would move to PWA, but I could see how Electron probably is easier. And you have to have service workers and stuff for PWA. Right.
They do, and they use Electron for Visual Studio Code too, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, they do. Yep. As does Atom. Most of the code editors are Electron.
That's nice because Electron is a way that you can turn a simple text editor into something that's as big as real Visual Studio, and thus it warrants the name.
I actually love VS Code. I mean, I really do.
I do too.
But
a lot of people do. Yep.
And then there's performance penalties too from using Electron. That's the other reason.
Still better than using Android Studio.
Probably.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
That what's that based on? Not Eclipse.
Yeah, it's based on Eclipse.
Is it Eclipse?
Oh no, JetBrains is based on.
Yeah. JetBrains.
Yeah.
Intella. Yeah, there. That's it. IntelliJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Eclipse is worse, actually.
IntelliJ must be written in pseudocode or something. I don't know. It's like a P code interpreter or something. Yeah.
All right. I want to take a little time out. We've got the back of the book coming up. Tips, apps, enterprise picks, and beer. What was the beer you were drinking earlier, Mary Jo?
That's not the pick, but this is Talia, a hazy IPA.
Ooh. That looks good.
It's very good.
That's not what we got. Time for the back of the book. Your tip of the week, Mr. Paul Thurrott.
This one isn't really tech related, and I'm not going to beat it to death, but I just, with what's going on in the world now, I just wanted to remind people that it's possible not to be like you are on Twitter all the time and maybe show up and be good.
Lisa has an acronym for it, DBD.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
I was like, what does that stand for?
Yeah.
We're teaching our son and his friends, DBD, baby.
Yeah. Interesting lesson from a neighbor of ours. We live in a circle, and there are 5 houses. 2 of the houses have really older couples living there, and one of our neighbors, the youngest couple actually on the circle, offered to all of us their stockpiled goods that they have in their garage. Nice. I guess she's like a couponer and everything. Yeah. And it's been very interesting watching people kind of rally together. Yes. My wife went to CVS and Costco the other day and picked up supplies for some of the people who don't want to, the older folks that don't want to leave the house and so forth. So nice. And, it's inspiring. I mean, I think obviously there's going to be stupidity, people stockpiling things like toilet paper for some reason and, all that, silliness you see out in the world. But, maybe this is an opportunity. We were talking about how, trade shows are maybe going to reset and we're going to start thinking about doing things a little differently. I can't speak for the world or even for the country, obviously, but at least in the United States, I feel like we need a little bit of a reset. And if any good could come out of this, and maybe it will just be in the way that we treat each other.
I agree with you 100%. And we've seen this. We saw it at 9/11 too. Crises bring us together, and it always gives me hope because sometimes our institutions don't do a good job, that kind of thing, but humans do. Yeah. And especially think about the seniors who are often isolated anyway, and this is just going to make it harder for them, what you can do to help them. Our bandwidth here comes from Sonic. We've talked about them before. They've been a sponsor. Dane Jasper, their CEO, is great. He just offered new customers 3 months of free fiber, gigabit fiber, if you're in one of his areas, for homes with K through 12 or college students. And now seniors 60 plus are also eligible 3 months. So that's part of the problem is kids are sent home from school. They don't have internet. They don't have the equipment.
Sure.
I think this is a time when we can all get together and do. Yeah,
and we've we have. You mentioned 9/11. I mean, when terrible things happen, some people are going to be terrible. This guy who hoards sanitizer and then tries to sell it at an enormous profit.
But those stories are always exceptional because they're so few.
Yeah. Don't focus on that stuff. No. Just
It's just really what's amazing is the little bits of kindness that are happening all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in your little cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it's just nice. Small things, local. It's nice.
Yeah, I think it's great. Good tip. Be kind.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to be said, but and then the app pick of this week, I think it was late last week, Corel released the latest version of their graphics suite. This is like one of those products, I can't use it for what I do, but it is really extensive and has some awesome tools. And some of the stuff that is new this time around is stuff I could see using. There's a bunch of typography improvements. Leo probably knows about this. I'd never heard of this before, but there's something called OpenType variable fonts.
Yeah.
and it basically allows you to programmatically, or in a design sense, create new fonts basically by stretching and pulling on existing fonts and just you can create your own logo or typeface or kind of design style. So it supports those, which is really cool.
OTF is a really great form. We're all used to in the Windows world TTF, but OTF is a really good format. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing new Edge tools for doing things like converting back and forth between vector and bitmap, and taking like a bitmap and you kind of blow it up and it's all pixely, and using AI to make that really smooth and beautiful look. This is a really powerful suite. Obviously, last year, maybe not obviously, but last year they came out with a version for Mac, so it's available across Windows and Mac as it was before. But now what they've done too, actually I should say, for people who are kind of Windows users, the interesting thing is we know from Office productivity suites like Microsoft Office, or if you use the Google stuff online or whatever, they have all these collaboration tools. And like you can go in, you have a document, you can track changes, people make comments, you can approve or disapprove and so forth. Corel has added that functionality to its graphics program, which when you hear about that makes tons of sense. So they have a web version of their app called Corel. I think it's called CorelDraw.app, which is actually a PWA. And people who are not the content creators, but are the people at work who need to approve things or comment on them, can use that app to put comments in line, just like they do in a word processing document. And then the designer can act on those changes through the full version of the app. So
not cheap, but still powerful. Right?
No, but it's, it's well, you can just buy it, $500, but the annual subscription, is $249.
Nice.
Yeah, it competes with Photoshop,
Yeah.
But it's also but it's in some ways it's kind of less expensive than the Adobe stuff if you go full blown on that side, and it's probably a better solution for smaller businesses as well. Also, it's kind of an aside, sorry, real quick. I can't write about Corel without someone saying, "Oh, are those guys still around?" Here's an idea, folks. When there's a company that's been around forever and they actually support the platform they use,
right on,
that you use, maybe be a little more positive about that, right? Like, why are people like that?
They still sell WordPerfect?
Probably.
They do.
I don't even know.
No, they do.
Probably.
Yeah.
But
WordPerfect Office,
I don't think they're all about WordPerfect.
X9 is the current version.
Yeah, it probably came out 11 years ago. But yeah, but I bet it still supports those keyboard shortcuts if you still
exactly.
Want
I used to love WordPerfect.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, me too. Yep.
I miss plain text.
The keyboard shortcuts came from the Wang word processor, the dedicated word processor. So
I use that.
Did you?
Yep. I use the Wang word processor.
So when you were in the early days when you were temping, right?
I think so classic WordPerfect, like 5.1 or whatever, is to writers what things like Emacs and VI are to developers or IT people. Like it's the old school. Like we remember this. Like we had all those weird keyboard combos down, and we had the keyboards with the overlays. If you needed help, remember that what they were.
Yeah.
Yep.
My finger still kind of goes to the other day I kind of embarrassed myself. I was using Emacs on one of our shows, and I kept going Control KS, and I went, oh wait a minute, that's WordStar. No, that's a WordStar command. It's weird how that gets in your brain, and you just never forget it your whole life. Dot commands and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, it's Corel, and it's Corel Draw Graphics Suite 2020. Now, an enterprise pick of the week. This was a shocker. We talked about this in St. Louis a little bit. The court saying, that Jedi contract maybe shouldn't have gone to Microsoft after Amazon sued. It looks like the Pentagon's going along. What's happening, Mary Jo?
I know. This is the next step beyond that, right? So last week, the Pentagon said they might be reevaluating the contract bid.
Wow.
After they decided to pause it with Microsoft winning.
$10 billion contract. It's big.
I know. So there's a couple interesting things to me about what they said. One is they're talking about re-allowing the bid only between Microsoft and Amazon, not letting Oracle in or anybody else, right? But it's all around this thing called Price Scenario 6. Price Scenario 6 is about one tiny aspect of this contract, which is about storage solution pricing. Okay, so that's the only part that they're like, okay, maybe we made a mistake there. They're not talking about politics or does Trump hate Bezos. They're not saying any of that. It's, maybe we made a mistake about pricing around storage solutions.
Do over.
And so when this motion was filed late last week, here's what was really weird. Microsoft was in favor of the reevaluation and AWS was against it.
Interesting.
So you would think it would be the reverse, right? Because Microsoft won the bid. What? So you would think they would be like, no, let's not reevaluate that. But no, AWS is the one fighting it. I think they're fighting it because maybe they think there's something there. And there's a lot of speculation that the Pentagon might end up splitting the Jedi contract between Microsoft and Amazon instead of just giving it to one or the other.
That actually would be smart. Don't you think? Or would it be harder to integrate the two together?
I don't know. I never thought winner take all made sense with something of this scope. $10 billion, 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? But
I don't think it makes sense generally for one company to have this contract. I mean,
No, that's what I mean.
Prudent?
Right.
From their perspective?
But if you're Microsoft or Amazon, your dream world is I win this and take all, right? And I've got it.
That doesn't make sense.
No, so Amazon's, I'm guessing, is against this idea of rebidding because they want to see if they can just throw the whole thing over and get it to be an Amazon contract. I asked Amazon, by the way, why they were against it, and I didn't hear anything back.
That's a weird thing. Like, you just won.
Right.
You don't want to win?
Yeah.
You just won.
I know, right?
Or at least had a victory.
I know. So it's going to be interesting in the next few months how this goes, and if they divide it in half or just table the whole thing, like what's gonna go on.
Kind of feel bad for the Pentagon because they're just twisted in the wind and all this.
They're just waiting. They're waiting, and Microsoft had hired a whole bunch of people to start working on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I feel bad for them. Yeah.
I know. So I made it the pick because I'm like, even though this is between Microsoft and Amazon, it also affects kind of everybody in both ecosystems in a way, right? If you're a partner or a supplier to either of these companies, you're also watching the Jedi bid with great interest.
Or as Paul Thurrott would say, Amazon gets a mulligan.
Yeah.
I never expected them to get a mulligan. I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised by this. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody was surprised.
In fact, we even mocked, the lawsuit saying, "Oh, come on," I mean, it may be true.
Were like, these guys don't stand a chance. Like, this is ridiculous.
And no, not only did the judge issue a restraining order, an injunction, but now the Pentagon says, maybe there was.
Yeah, we didn't really want him anyway.
Maybe
it's like
that price clause 6. I don't know.
Let's call the whole thing off. Enterprise pick number 2.
All right, I'm making a very self-important and
plug it, baby.
Self-reverential.
It's okay.
Plug of something.
Plug
it. Is it for Microsoft 3.0 or upcoming book?
No, it is not. Surprise! I'm doing a book. No.
I knew it.
So I do a project over on Petri.com, which is part of Paul's World, BWW, and it's called MJF Chat. I've talked about it before on this show. But I'm talking about it now because we have got a ton of content up there for people who are IT pros on all kinds of topics. And we just recently became a podcast. So now you can subscribe through Spotify or Google or iTunes. And before it was you had to download the file, but now you can actually subscribe. And I can't cite this person's name because it hasn't been approved. But somebody at Microsoft said, this is level 101 IT pro talk. Like if you are an IT pro and you want to learn about a lot of things at a nice basic level where you can feel like you can talk about everything from Project Cortex to cybersecurity to Windows, this is your show, MJF Chat.
This is great.
Who do you talk to about mobile or handheld PCs? Who is that? Is that Mike Halsey?
Mike Halsey. Yeah.
Really?
Mike Halsey, that's my latest one. He's an MVP for Windows and has written many books on Windows and courses.
Yep.
I just published that one today. So he and I had a 30-minute audio chat about what's next in handheld PCs. We talked about the Duo, the Neo. We talked about the Gemini PA. Yeah. So we get lots of great content up there. It's free, and you can subscribe. And we also have all the transcripts up there as well.
Nice. This is great.
Yeah.
I had no idea. This is that's super cool.
Yeah, some
JF
good guests.
That's at Petri.com.
I'm getting some great guests. Yeah.
If you just go to Petri.com, you'll see it on the front page, right?
You will.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a link for podcasts, and you can go to MJF Chat.
Perfect. Well, let's see. I think there's only one thing we could possibly still talk about, and that would be beer.
There is.
Yes.
So you know what was sad?
What?
St. Patrick's Day was yesterday.
Ruined.
Oh,
Ruined.
man. Oh, man.
I
The
know.
rivers aren't
'Cause
flowing green. What's happened?
I know. Normally, I would give you a St. Patrick's Day pick ahead of time, but I didn't think about it falling right the day before Windows Weekly. So I said, you know what? Today's not too late. So my pick is a stout, not some fancy pastry stout, but just like a basic, honest, all-purpose stout from Torch and Crown, which is our newest and only brewery in Manhattan, New York.
It's so weird to have a brewery in Manhattan.
They're right in Manhattan in Tribeca.
I mean, that's got to be the most expensive real estate in the world.
I know. They're not open to the public yet, but they're brewing beer. And in fact, yesterday, they started home delivery for people in Manhattan.
You can stay home and get drunk. That's awesome.
I immediately was like, I got to support these guys. They're local, right? And the owner came and drove over yesterday and brought my beer to me.
He saw the Mary Jo Foley. I'm bringing it to her personally.
Yeah. Right. So
was this
I
a
got a lot of
pay for
beer.
play kind of thing? Mary Jo?
I wish it was, but no. Erebus, Erebus, I think is how you pronounce
Actually,
that.
this is a reason to move to New York City.
Right?
Does this just during COVID, or do you think he'll keep this up?
Actually,
No, he's doing it
our
forever.
local wineries are doing home delivery.
I think this is so cool. And of course, the name
I know.
Torch and Crown, once I see the website, that's the Statue of Liberty
Makes
they're
sense,
talking about.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this stout they're making, Erebus, is named for the Greek god of darkness.
Oy.
Hence, it's a stout.
It says, and he's arrived in New York City.
He's arrived in New York City. Yeah, but any beer you get from these folks, I've tried a lot of them, and they're all very, very good. Their tap room will be open maybe later this year. They were hoping earlier, but
I'm just glad to know that on the list of essential businesses, beer breweries
has to be on there, right?
It's on the list. Keep brewers. You don't get to go home. Keep brewing that beer. We need
you want
it.
to hear the stupidest thing in the world? Like, so the state of Pennsylvania closed all of restaurants and bars and blah blah blah, including the liquor store, right? So of course everyone heads over to the liquor store on Monday afternoon because
Wipes
it's
it
closing
out.
at midnight. Midnight
Wipes it
forever.
out. Yep.
There would have been 3 people in there otherwise. Like, you want to keep people safe? Just leave the liquor store open. No one's going. But now there's a run on like terrible alcohol, and we're all standing in line in there, and it's like, if you want to get coronavirus, this is the place
Good way
to
to
come.
do it.
It's like 100 people in here.
It's like, did you see pictures from Dallas, Fort Worth, the airport, and I think a Chicago airport, where people were lined up to get their COVID tests before they could come into the country? They were like cattle pens.
Yeah.
Well, if
Guess
any
what?
one of you's got it,
you got it here
you
waiting
all
in line.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible.
It's incredible.
Yep. Terrible.
We deserve coronavirus. This is just it's like a karma payback, you know?
Not the virus we need, the virus we deserve.
No, I think it is considered an essential service to have beer delivered.
It's food.
I don't think.
I think it's food, right? It's a food.
Well, there's good carbs in there. It'll keep you going.
Good carbs.
Exactly.
We're eating good carbs.
Guinness is good for you, as they say.
I am so glad that you guys actually have experienced zero change in your work life, and and continue to do Windows Weekly. We kind of consider us an essential service. We know you need company while you're stuck at home, and I'm so glad you listen. And I'm so glad we got Paul and Mary Jo to kind of keep you company. Paul Thurrott at Thurrott.com. That's his website. Of course, up and running, because nobody works in the office.
Right.
THU.
We don't even have an office.
There's no office. THUROdoublegood.com. There's also his books at leanpub.com, including the Windows 10 Field Guide, which now Paul has lots of time to update.
Still holding out for the Mary Jo Foley head byline, but whatever. That's fine.
Bestseller thing. Inside Windows Weekly. The true story.
The inside story.
Of the little podcast that could.
You're never going to believe.
With that DBD Leo. Mary Jo Foley writes constantly for Ziff Davis, ZDNet. It's not Ziff Davis anymore. It's just Z. The Z stands for nothing. ZDNet. It's easy to find. Allaboutmicrosoft.com. She's brewing beer in her flat. Are you? Are you going to make some? You should.
I might restart that tradition.
Yeah.
You do live in the place in the country that possibly has the best water.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
From the beautiful Schuylkill Reservoir in upper New York State. And it comes all the way down through the state into the city.
I could start selling it in my apartment complex.
Tap water.
But I'd leave it outside.
Get your tap water here.
I brew beer, but leave it outside people's doors.
If you hold your nose and drink it for 10 seconds, it actually protects you from the coronavirus.
I've heard that.
They are showing some games now for the Xbox, Gears, Tactics, so we'll take a look at some of those after the show. That's a lot more interesting than...
Yep. Yeah, I could have done some of this earlier.
Yeah, much more interesting. Thank you, Paul Thurrott. Thank you, Mary Jo. We do Windows Weekly, and we will keep doing Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Because we're in summertime now, that means it's 1800 UTC. I don't know.
I can't believe you keep track of this.
I used to. I know. You keep changing the time on me. Anyway.
The clock in the gym never changed, and it screwed me up for like a week, and now it's just closed.
Good. So they closed it. That's good.
Yep. That's how they fixed it.
This is what you get for that. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. You can watch live at twit.tv/live. Twit.tv/live. You can also get on-demand versions of the show at the website, twit.tv/WW. It's also on YouTube. And my friends, I strongly encourage you to subscribe. That way you'll always have something to listen to on your device. You can also ask Amazon's Echo or the Google Assistant to play Windows Weekly podcast, and they'll play the latest version for you. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time right here for Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.